USB microphone. Yes. I seem to have a green light now. Is there now sound amongst you? Kind of sad, really. Don't be sad. Um, Sound check. Someone work with me now. 5 by 5. So, all right. So there's sound. Outstanding. That also worked for the fact that the helicopter that was flying around the house here a minute ago has gone away. So now I can hear me, which is terrible. But here we are. All right. This is good. I wanted to start a little early. That obviously didn't happen because I want to show you a photo. And now we are on, well, most of you on YouTube, and I am on this platform called StreamYard because I have no idea how to show you a photo because I want to show you a photo that you have never seen. I don't think anybody's ever seen. And I may have to stick it on as a banner or something temporarily. We're going to talk about 555. Don't start speaking me in code. It only took me till recently to figure out how to do abbreviations on texting. All right. Outstanding. I want to talk about DSS, and I want to answer some of you. I have 184 emails that I really want to actually take a minute and answer and update. Joseph will join us on the 27th, and I'm trying to nail down Chieftain to talk about German versus British and possibly American munitions production and quality and penetrations and some of those interesting things. We are going to yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about both. Some of you asked a question about the difference between British and American munitions, and I thought that was actually interesting. And I thought Chieftain is just the guy to do that. And I am flipping through my dashboard because I want to show you a photo. Now, we all remember last year's or last Nazi Secret where I paddled through the Riese, Project Riese out in Poland, which is now Poland, and all the tunnels. This past couple of months, I crawled through every one of the tunnel systems that was built. And just because I wanted to go through all these systems, see what was there, see what was built, see how little cement and concrete was actually there. And then I went through some of all the finished and completed production sites, underground factories of miles and miles of underground tunnels and factory floors that was complete with fewer labor or less labor and fewer people, less resources, and faster time. That's a good way just to show you that when we are told that all this happened because they wanted to build this Hitler's headquarters with all these resources and there's nothing to see. Same thing as Jonastal. Jonastal was important, and I found some very interesting things. Servus, things out in Jonastal, out in Germany, that I want to share with you. It's not that even the Germans try to hide it. Just when there's a third nuclear reactor sitting in an old school building, and you stumble on it to find it, kind of makes you wonder, well, what else are they hiding? What else haven't we been told? I just got a FOIA request from the CIA, got back, where they actually somewhat responded to my question. And I got nice diagrams of what Dr. Kamler built. So that I have to dissect. What I want to do right now is try to figure out to show you a photo of something that was found out in Project Riese in Poland. And see, I'm just going to confuse the system by doing it twice. Don't even think about it. Yeah. Yes. Oh, damn you. Yes, YouTube are special. Okay, so, close. I want to see if I can. Okay, this all's going to wait. So I'm paddling around. We're trying to figure out how I can upload a photo for you all to see. And everything is on YouTube is actually driving me crazy. So let me see if I can't do this on StreamYard instead, because I won't need to see this. It took me a little wrangling to get it out. Nope. Otherwise, I'm going to have to post it on my YouTube so you can actually see the photo of it. I don't know if I can drag things over. Let me see. That didn't go well. See, I always said I need someone who's technically savvy in my life. Of course, this platform may not actually allow for this. So, but when I did a private chat with Joseph some time ago, we could figure out how to show each other photos. Donkey. And I can't do a banner either. All right. Okay. This is one of those things. Put on screen and turn on. You know what? That would be the very easy way of doing it. All right, fine. We'll do it. We will do it that way. Just because you know I have like 6 different screens. All right, take a look at this. Now, take a look at this, and in a minute, I'll come back to myself. This is an access key card. This was found near Project Riese. You know, the place they said where absolutely nothing was finished. This was made in 1942, 43, 44 by the Germans. And I'm just saying, if you have this kind of sophisticated access control, are you telling me that that's what it is? That's exactly what it is. But they use this. What do you need to access? If you have something like this, you need to access something, don't you? And all I find above board is tunnels that are empty. And I've always said that Project Riese is much more than empty tunnels. I've been through every single one of those tunnels out there. Now, and we did the calculations of all the cement that was used, all the labor that was used. And then I spent some time with, interesting enough, the Henge location and one of the big tunnels that's called Riese is owned by a very cool guy, a Polish contractor that bought them. So he actually owns them. Although the government out there is very keen on trying to get them back because, well, I have my suspicions, and I did a very long interview with him. He only speaks Polish. So I'm actually having subtitles done because I want you to hear it from himself and then read what he has to say, because he's, like I said, he's a really cool guy. And he owns these places. So he shed a lot of light on what actually took place and what is there. And what's interesting is everyone seems to agree that there is something underneath these tunnels. And I was shown very clearly how you can make false floors in these places. And incidentally, this key card was found near one of the rocket testing facilities next to the Riese. So it is just inconceivable that they were building a headquarters for Hitler and they didn't finish, or they didn't do anything. The whole concept of these hundreds of thousands of tons of cement, most of these tunnels have 1 or 2% of cement in them. It's just not possible. And you'll see as we go through the episodes, I am working really hard on the first episode because I want to kind of lay out the case. And then we're going to go through all the different locations of Kamlas and all the other production facilities so you can see what they did And that way we really used to extrapolate what they could have done, because I think that's really important. And I found I would believe, the last existing V2 test site that has not been demolished or destroyed, that is still intact in one piece. And it took quite a bit of wrangling because it's on the property of a company that has been there for 120 years, also at the time when the SS was there. So they kind of really don't want people to keep running around visiting them, uh, which I understand. So but I got access, and they had a rocket fuel facility underneath the test facility. So that we are going to show as well. And yeah. All right. Hey, Daniel. Um, Dedicated phone lines, by the way. Thanks, Dan. They had enormous phone communication systems, and not only that, there was from the historians. There's a lot of the historians that I interviewed that only speak the language they spoke. So I'm having subtitles done of all of them, because I want you to hear it from them. I don't want to dub this, and I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want to hear what these local researchers have found. And yes, you had communication between the Riese location and Berlin via camera, where they could actually sit in a box and watch and talk and watch each other, just like we are doing here now. Now, with that kind of communication and technology, it's just inconceivable to think they didn't get further or didn't do more. And I see the same thing in Jonastal, where Jonastal was the, if you will, the sister program to Riese. It was the same thing, just in Germany, much further away from the advancing Russians, in the mountains. And again, you go there today and you crawl through them. And James Holland went through them. Well, he didn't. They sent in a little robot, and I made a little fun of snide remark why I could crawl into him and he didn't. Except James Holland is like a foot taller than I am. So, but I got into the Jonasel tunnels as well, just to disturb the bats. We can talk about Holland and Belgium and France and bats at some point in time at length. However, so the first episode I'm doing is going to be about Jonastal, because I want you to see what that was and get a feel for what I was looking at there. And then we're going to go through some of all these. And it was interesting. It wasn't really planned that way, but the way I traveled around, I wanted to see all the locations that Kamler did, that within reason, and all of the locations where large industry had moved underground, just to give an idea of what was done. And for every tunnel I went to, or every underground factory I saw, for some reason it just seemed it was bigger than the one I saw last time. When I finally went to the cement tunnels up by Ebensee, it was just the most amazing, enormous underground structure in a mountain, where you could literally have 3 trains, 2 trains, and a third on top. That's how big the hallways were. It's staggering what they could build in such a short time. It really, really was. And that, I think, is something that's really interesting. And I think it's important to understand what their capabilities were. I also got quite a few interviews that I'm going to go over from Xavier Dorsch, who ran the Tod organization. And he talked about how they just knew exactly. They had everything mapped out, exactly what labor they needed, how many people they needed, how long they needed to build XYZ in whatever different foundations. They had everything mapped out. How much, how long, how much it would cost, how long it would take, how many people they would need to do anything anywhere. So it is hard to believe that they wouldn't have the same type of meticulous research planning and layout for their nuclear projects. And I think they did. And I have an uncle. Is there a family out there I'm not aware of? Which is interesting. You know, funny. I mean, Danny means the bombing campaign. There's a lot of these very explicit sites that were not bombed. particularly well or particularly much, because as towards the end of the war, there was more of an eye on the part of the Allies of not bombing these secret research sites because they didn't want to destroy the technology they knew was going to be there. And if they knew they was going to be there, how did they know? Since, unless somebody had communicated to them that there was something going on. And I think that is, I'm going to maintain that Kamla, he did a deal with the Allies, and I'm gonna stick to that. And what happened to him here? There's some very interesting. There's some very interesting suggestions, including him having been seen in Czechoslovakia in 1968, visiting family that he apparently acquired during the war outside his regular family. I don't judge. Again, I need some. Would like some more documentation other than a piece of paper with his signature on it. But then again, we also found Bormann's signature in a bank in Argentina 20 years after he supposedly died. So, all right, are you guys having a conversation that I need to be part of here? um, and one of the things that makes all this possible is, before I start answering all my 10 million questions, that I promised that I really need to get to. The thing is, you need to understand how Germany really worked from the late 20s and how the SS already then began to command the agenda and take over under Heinrich Himmler. And they did. The SS really had set itself up to be, and that was very much Himmler's doing. For being a relatively unassuming man, he was very driven, and he was a little pedantic, wanted things very meticulous, and he wanted them done right. And he wanted the SS to be the elite. By doing so, he also courted the elite. And Hitler had courted the industrialists in the 20s for funding, for money, because when you talk about socialism, which is opposite of capitalism, when you take National Socialism, is not opposite capitalism. The SS was very much a for-money capitalist organization, and they did business with the bankers, with the business, with the big business, with the very big business, and these relationships established already in the 20s continues throughout to the end of the war, where you see them play a very important part in the development and of technology and of the war itself. So you can see how the resources were available from private companies, and one will I think we can wonder a little bit about who really ran things. There was in 44, 45, there was a very clear and determined effort on those who were still alive, especially after the war, and it was decidedly said so. It was told to both Himmler and Heydrich's families, it was told to Lena, Heydrich's wife, or widow, that the blame was going to be shifted on those who were no longer alive, which makes somewhat sense to those who are alive, except it doesn't really make sense to their families who are still alive. And that's why it's so easy to see for the posterity of World War II. Ever since, it has been a remembrance of how those who were dead were to blame for everything. It was all Hitler's fault. It was all Himmler's fault. It was all Goering. It was all Heydrich's fault, or the people who were missing. They are the ones who did everything, while those who were alive, they all, it was never their fault. They had nothing to do with it. And which is, I guess, a basic human nature. But you also see it with the businesses that enabled or were enabled. So did Himmler they were raising funds for the SS. And what he was also doing is getting in with the various royal families around Europe. And back then, there was a lot of there was a lot more royalty that had property or they had a region, or there was a baron here or there, a little castle, over Belgium, Holland, because they wanted those people. There's hardly any royal families in Europe in the early 30s that didn't have at least one son that was a member of the SS, because that was seen as the elite organization that everybody wanted to belong to. That also helped with the fundraising, and that also probably helped a little bit with the liaison to the royal families in England, because, well, they're all, well, were they royal family first and then citizens of their country second, or the other way around? I think they seem to be all be family first. So that would also lead us to why Hitler had begged Hess to reach out to his friends and families out in, remember, Hess was in the SS, um, and worked with Himmler for back in the, all the way back to the 20s. It was the old guard that go way back. So he asked Hess to go reach out to his royal contacts in England to see if they can broker a peace deal, since Churchill had forbade everybody else to get back, or accept any peace offers from Hitler, which leads us to why Hess probably flew off to Scotland, and why we have never seen or heard him talk about it openly again, and why the British locked him up and would not let him out. Because if he was actually going to go see someone on the royal families, that's laundry that you really didn't want to go out after the war, which is the same reason why the British killed Himmler. I am, from everything I can see and read on Himmler and his personality and his intent to try to join the Allies against the Russians, or and even offering. He was bent on meeting Eisenhower because he wanted to offer his SS units against the Russians. That even he was said to believe that the Russians were going to continue to roll over the Americans. And he tried to warn the Americans, supposedly tried to warn the Americans against that. Of course, it didn't happen. But of course, Himmler also didn't happen after that fateful meeting with the British. And again, we're talking about a person who just knew too much. And he is the one that created the environment within the SS that enabled business, fundraising, and all the businesses, they survived. Many of them are still in business today. And a lot of people made a lot of money. Basically, nothing had really changed between then and now. Hess diaries. If he wrote diaries in prison, I'm pretty sure they would have disappeared. But again, Hess was denied to even Prince Bernard, exactly. Hess was not allowed to talk about anything that happened during the war with his son when he was visiting, or with anyone else. They were not allowed to even talk about it. So for him to have been sitting and writing down what really happened actually seems unlikely. I think he was hoping on being released and then being able to talk about this freely if he had come out. I think he hung on that long because he wanted to tell his story, but he knew he couldn't do it in prison or even to his family. Like Prince Bernard, well, he has a very interesting post-war story. In the what became, I guess, the rulers of the rest of the world, isn't it? You have a lot of little interesting organizations that sprung up after the war within governments, or the Bilderbergers and what have you, and also people that entered politics that had all taken a part of the Third Reich, that all got cleaned up and changed their suits and went back to business in a different way. But it seems, no, the agenda doesn't seem to have changed that much. Sigh, yes. Well, the coroner's office, when the body was picked up by the family, it had been welded in a coffin, and the British told them very clearly to just go bury him, and they went the other way, and had an autopsy done that clearly said he had been strangled from behind as opposed to hung from up. So I think it's certain that Hess was murdered. And interestingly enough, the whole Hess family grave, now that after his son died, the last person died, was erased by the German family, and all the bodies were burnt and dispersed somewhere in the forest somewhere. So all the bodies disappear. So like Bormann's body, destroy the body and get rid of it, so there's no more evidence. Um, Hess he was very much into astrology and probably much more as of an esoteric person than most other people at that time, which is an interesting study. Also makes him a little, I don't know, maybe been a little kooky. I think Hess was an interesting study, but I think he meant well, which is why he went out of on the limb to try to create peace, and I think he should at least be remembered for having tried to do that. Um, but he was also being derailed by Bormann. There was a constant power struggle within the Nazi Party from the very beginning, where everybody was pitted against one another instead of consolidating. It's funny, Switzerland. It's funny you should mention Switzerland, because when everyone is running around looking for the gold train and the gold that was smuggled out at the last days of the war and just before the advancing Allies are Russians, and now if we have to be absolutely realistic and let's for yeah, that'll happen. Um, just hypothetically, tomorrow we're going to invade a country, Albonia. Albonia has gold and rich people, and them we don't like. So the day after tomorrow, we have invaded Albonia, and we have taken possession of all its riches. Now we know that all the countries surrounding Albonia wants to kick us out, and they're probably going to do so at some point. Are we going to wait? We'll take all of the riches and their national bank and all the assets we can out of that country. Are we going to wait until there's an active counterstrike from the surrounding neighbors? Or are we going to do it in peace and quiet in the years leading up to while we're consolidating our position? Of course we are. Why would they wait? If there's a gold deposit somewhere in Poland or Czechoslovakia or Ukraine, realistically, do you think that they're going to wait until the Russians are miles away before they load it on truck, rushed onto planes, no? Just basic common sense. I'm saying, of course, they evacuated everything of value. And trust me, I just did the drive from Czechia or from Poland through Austria to Switzerland. It's not a very long drive. And I'm pretty sure if I go 70 years back in time and I say, well, here, Mr. Swiss Bank, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of gold. You get 10%, keep your mouth shut where it came from. Well, you know what they say about bankers. I don't know what they say about bankers, but it can't be anything good. I have friends that are bankers. I'm sorry, Peter. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting people that all went to Argentina on vacation for years and years after. I'm thinking that, Berth, I think you're right. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Why it sounds so good that we're looking for a gold train, but why would we? Why would there be a train with gold sitting somewhere? It would have been evacuated a long time. Can I make fun of bankers, Lawrence? Is that okay? I'm a little pissed off at my bank because they screwed up, but so did the rental car company, and I demand you all wage war with me against the rental car company sixth. But and then we'll yell at Wells Fargo after that. Bankers worse than lawyers. Oh my God! Come on, you're hurting Lawrence here. I mean, the whole gold. All right, shifting topic. Good man. The whole gold throne theory. No, it doesn't make sense. Exactly. Why would you do that? Sticking gold on a submarine, trying to get it out. Yeah, okay. But Switzerland is just so much easier. Hess? Really? So I didn't actually know how much of the Hess family was still alive. Yeah. There are still family members alive. Like Kamala's grandson is still alive, and was a couple of years ago that Himmler's daughter passed away. Well, how many bankers immigrated to Argentina? You know what? I'm not sure the bankers needed to immigrate. Why would they? They're sitting with their money, and business goes on no matter who's in charge. Um, but anyway, uh, well, I don't think there was a the train. Uh, I've also heard stories of a lot of trains that ran through Czechoslovakia uh, towards the end of the war in advance of the advancing Russians fleeing all the way back. I heard Skosena was involved in this. He was also a bit of a storyteller, so it's kind of hard to well, he may have exaggerated a few things. He was a good storyteller. You got to had to make a living after the war, right? You have to sort of do something and write some books and stuff, and I get that. Um, but I don't think there was the gold train. I think there were a few. Okay, I think there was three separate, at least, efforts that was taking place when it comes to valuables and gold and monies and what have you, art, whatever. You would have an organized, high up on the official rank, trying to evacuate financials, money, patents, just like the one Bormann asked for by all the German industrialists in 1944 in his last book. The businesses would evacuate their patents and their assets out of Germany, expecting to be overrun, and then eventually funnel them back into Germany to rebuild um, Germany again in one way or another. That's what would be a organized effort on behalf of the party. Then there would be high officials that would have access to larger amounts of gold, cash, whatever, that would have a semi-official evacuation, like this, the gold they stashed from the German Reichsbank that was found. And then I think you would have a whole lot of smaller opportunists who would have the opportunity of liberating smaller amounts of valuables, gold, diamonds, and try to get out small independent units, a couple of people, somebody of high enough rank that he could throw it in the back of his staff car and get past checkpoints, trying to get it into Germany, Austria, burying it somewhere on the way, maybe trying to get into Switzerland if they had the contacts. Regular army units, SS units, maybe had stolen stuff, taken stuff, gotten through stuff. War is a messy place, and you never know what you come across. Now, for that to be found, that'll be hard because many of them never lived long enough to come back and pick up whatever it was. And if they did, they would have, or they have done so. So you're looking at the few people who had access to valuables that they could actually have successfully evacuated. And then they would have evacuated them where? Through the Alps, through Italy, through Austria. Now, Austria was a special place because they sort of were treated rather lenient by the initially occupying Russians and then Americans. Well, actually, the Americans got to many of the places in Austria first. At least get to Gusen first, which is far more, and Linz, which was far more interesting. Then they handed it over to the Russians, and then they handed it back to the Austrians because the Austrians, the Vatican, certainly the Vatican could have. I mean, there must have been a reason why the Vatican was so keen to help Nazi war criminals after the war. It would not be unthinkable. At this point in time, I don't think anything is unthinkable anymore. I think we have to be very realistic with what people are, what human beings are. And if you put enough gold in someone's hands, 99% of most people are going to take it. Because especially at a time at the end of the war where you're looking at chaos and you're looking at a world that's upside down, you don't know what's coming. So gold in hand will get you far because that's the one type of currency that then, and I suppose now, still, will actually give you a little bit of safety. So that is right. And speaking of which, I think that we're just going to take a step outside of World War II for a minute. I think you should all, um, well, I don't think, I am not shopping in places that no longer take cash. If they don't take cash, I don't want to shop there. I don't want to support that because it scares the living crap out of me that the Western world is trying to do away with cash, because that will completely give away any kind of control we have of our own freedom and independence. Uh, just That's just a personal note that drives me crazy when I go to a restaurant and I have to scan. One thing I have to scan is a little brick in order to get the menu. They can't even bother to have menus anymore. I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing the not cash thing. And I don't think we should support that because that is a very, very, very scary direction. And thank God for when you go to Czechia, Poland, Hungary, they like cash. When you go further west, oh, we don't take cash. My gym stopped taking cash. And if it wasn't because I've been there since I was 18, I would probably leave on that cow. Now we're back to the 1% that actually stand for principles. But I don't know. It's like I said, it's an observation, um, and it's very scary. Yes, skip Star. Yeah, don't worry. I wouldn't go to Starbucks if you paid me. See, well, I'm an actor, so theoretically I am for sale, but you have to pay me a lot. So I work at a bank. All right, come on. Let me. I am just. I'm just raining hell on you today, aren't I? Um, I'm not going to ask what bank, but are you not seeing the a trend pushing people away from cash? Um, yeah, exactly. You give away all the, and if you take cash away and you only leave people who have credit cards and plastic, then in theory uh, you could be shut off, certainly tracked. And then any not that I it's like none of us are really doing anything wrong. So if you want to track what I do, fine. If you want to look at where I'm going, I don't care. I have nothing to hide. But seriously, at some point in time, don't we want just a little privacy? And do we really want someone to come and say, well, I saw you were there and there. Maybe you met with this person because he was also the same person. Now he did something. Not that I'm specifically trusting. Well, we trust our governments to do the right thing, don't we? Yes, let's digress, shall we? Um, but like I said, back then, gold carries as much weight as it does today. And if that's how you're paying for your way out of Europe into Argentina, Italy, Spain, certainly the Spanish would be a way to. I think actually that's quite a good possibility of a lot of things um, that could have ended up in Spain because Franco did owe Hitler a bit from the Civil War, although he didn't never actually joined Hitler or wanted to support him. But he also didn't want to do that because Canaris kept telling him not to. Because Hitler several times he wanted to involve Spain in the war or go to take Gibraltar or Malta. No, not Malta, Gibraltar. He wanted to go through Spain to get to the British down there on the rock. And Franco continued to say no because Hitler sent Canaris to negotiate, and Canaris kept telling Franco not to do it. And no matter how we twist and turn it, Canaris was a traitor to the German cause at that time. So, well, but that's a Swiss. But if that is all they got, I could see them have gotten a lot more. Um, and then, of course, a lot of gold and silver disappeared out of Germany in hands of the Allies, from what I can understand. Um, yeah, okay, Infowars. I once in a very blue moon. I really don't. Honestly, I don't even watch TV. I have absolutely no time to do anything other than edit and work out because, oh damn, 2 months on European food. European food is really really good. And we can start worrying about all the weird shit they put in American food. At least they don't do that in Europe. European food is good, and European ice cream is better. Aha. Um, there was a question. I have not gotten to patent yet because, uh, well, I haven't gotten to them yet. There's a few things on Patton. I would like to meet with some of his family. Uh, Trying to read and think and do things. And hang on, there's something I have to do. What am I doing here? Oh, YouTube are driving me crazy. Well, what else is new? All right, so anyway, just to wrap up what I was saying about, so what we're going to go through in the next 2-3 months is all these places where technology was made and built and researched. And I have interviews with the people who have specifically researched their little part of the world. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to hide miles and miles and miles of underground hallways, which leads us to think how easy it is to hide the things inside these hallways. So that is one thing. Freemasons, not a whole lot. The German Freemasons, the German Freemason, okay, let's go back into the world that once was, where you had the aristocracy was calling the shots around the world, and they were in charge of most things and opinion setters. Many of them were Freemasons. And honestly, so now you have people who are in charge of important aspects of world history. Did they set a trend because they were Freemasons or because of the position they were in, that, and then they were Freemasons also? I know a lot of Freemasons. Actually, the first war movie I made was about two Masons hiding in the German army. And I don't think the Freemasons before World War II did a whole lot of anything except trying to survive. And they wrote Goering and everyone else to try to explain how National Socialists they were and how supportive they were of the movement, because, and I don't think you can hold that against them, because they knew that all the organizations were being banned, and theirs were on the chopping block. And there were some of the Nazi magazines that were really hacking away at them, and then they were pushing the Russian leaders and the communist leaders. They were you know the slogan: Freemasons, Jews, bankers, blah blah blah. Sorry, but that was kind of the thing. So, well, the Nazis didn't. They did. They banned all organizations, all unions, all organizations that were not National Socialists. So the German Masonic societies, some of them just closed and went away because they saw the writing on the wall, and some of them really tried to conform. And they, like they wrote Goering, they wrote a lot of others, trying to explain how much they supported the regime. And some of them were in the aristocracy, some of them were higher ups. And at that point in time, when you get the closer you get to the 30s and the 40s, the more they just try to survive. I haven't seen anything subversive from them at all. In that, I haven't seen any of them playing any role at all. They were just shut down like everybody else, and all the regalia and all the books and everything was compiled in a museum in Berlin that was initially run by Adolf Eichmann. And then it was all taken by the Russians after the war, and it had been returned to German Masonic societies some years ago. And it's very interesting because I went to one of the submarine pens and did a whole long bit from there, which one of you asked me to. And the historian there, his PhD thesis was about German Masons during World War II. So I'm going to book him for a copy, and then I'm going to read through it and see what else there is. But also, you look at the American Revolution, generally speaking, even Masons today, it's a big fraternity with generally the charters they don't talk about politics or religion, and they have to be good, upright, standing citizens of the community, so they can't be criminals. And if they work together because they know each other and trust each other and know, it's a fraternity, just like any other college fraternity. Now, if there's the one percenters that, I don't know, there's a Masonic lodge out in Washington, I'd love to visit. I don't know how many American politicians today are Masons. I think we are veering so far off mainstream America, off what American culture, that I think a lot of the politicians, they no longer have an interest in the old fraternities or the old traditions, and that was sort of a tradition for at that time. You go a couple hundred years back, that was the tradition. Um, so I it's a big club. Yeah, it's a big club. But I don't have the impression that it's a bad club. I don't have an impression that they're trying to do anything bad. Most of the Masons I know, they couldn't organize a picnic. Again, I don't know what the 1% are doing. How would I know? Who would know? And if they did know, according to, I think it was a history documentary, then they wouldn't tell you. Uh, I did not know that, but I a lot of military men were Freemasons. Again, it lends well to, after war, soldiers come back looking for that sense of fraternity, joining Masonic lodge where you have people of the same mindset and you have people you can trust and count on. I see that as a natural. I don't see it as something. I don't see it as something bad. Um, if there are members, if there's people within circles that are doing something, or setting agendas, I think there's a lot of organizations we really should worry about. Not sure the Masons are one of them. However, got free Corvette. Oh, yeah, no, the astronauts got free Corvettes. Come on, could you see Biden ride a Corvette? Drive one? Really? Um, no disrespect to the president, I just don't think it will be safe. Um, oh, never mind. His family. Whose family? Oh, probably. Yeah, he did. Crossbone. Yeah, there's skull and crossbones. That interesting. Don't know a whole lot about them. Guess no one does. Uh, yeah, about that. Anyway, what I wanted to do was start answering some of your questions. And that's why my head is spinning a little back and forth, because I have two screens and one is the opposite direction of the camera. So, um, pirates. Okay. I'm just see if there's any interesting final. Biden has an astronaut cylinders. I mean, he would, but can he drive the damn thing? I mean, he's old. We'll get access to Jody to Biden. Hunter Biden. Yeah, Hunter Biden doesn't live that far from where I am, and yeah, he moved into the fancy artists network down by the. Just don't get in my way when I'm going to the gym, okay? That's all I'm saying. Just keep all these people out of my way. Yes, that's exactly where did that key card go? What door was so important? What was behind that door that was so important that they found this there? Um, do you watch middle? Yeah, I do. I do some of the Russians. I really like. I really wanted to go join them on that. And like I said, I have some missing family members that fell in Germany, and they were supposed to have been in excavation this year to go dig up some old battlefields, see if they could find him. And I really wanted to go, and somebody never got back to me. So, but this has been a very much of a strange year, has it not? So, so I'm not. I hope that we'll go do some battlefield excavation, and I'm also very much looking forward to going to Russia as soon as I can, and see what they're actually doing. Because who the hell made what? All right, got one more question. I'm going to start doing some of the email questions that I have, because it's been a while, and I feel bad that I haven't. What's the key card? Oh. Well, I found something. Anyway. I'm going to post a picture of the key card after. All right. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be brutally on it, I'm going to start from the wrong direction of my email. Hey, buddy. And I'm going to start to answer some of the emails that you have sent. Because, all right, Lisa, that is. There's been an. Okay, interesting. There's been an attempt to discredit the Nazi Bell story that have appeared at various UFO-related sites. Yes, there's a lot of things that will discredit the Bell story, because there's a frightful little information. It seems like the key card was made of metal. Now, stop it. Got to answer questions. There's very little information about the Bell story. It only came out of the Spornberg and another two SS officers' post-war testimony in Poland that I still have not gotten, although God knows I have written more requests from everywhere asking for it. I just got one back from not the CIA, one of the national intelligence agencies, where I asked for a copy of Spornberg's post-war testimony, wherein he talks about the Bell, and they sent me a bunch of pictures of German children starving after the war and Germans surrendering. And I wrote them back, what in the double toothpicks have this got to do with my question? Please read my question and try again. I don't think they're trying to discredit it. It's just they're just being annoying. But again, the problem I have with the Bell is we only have secondhand information of two pieces of documentation that we haven't read. And that bothers the crap out of me. What we do have is the letter that I posted on my website, one-page brief, as there was probably more, from AEG, talking about high voltage experiments that were decisive to the war effort. High voltage, and that's where I think we need to look at what was AEG doing. High voltage experiments decisive for the war effort. And plus we have second or several information statements that von Aden, he had installed cyclotrons several places out in Silesia, out in relation to Project Riese sites. So electricity was going on, experimentation was going on, testing was going on. What exactly it was. Now, you all saw and if you haven't, why haven't you? You've all seen the episode I did while I was traveling from the Henge location, where I went and tied together with the pipes to the Henge basin for the cooling tower. I am, at this point in time, very convinced it was a cooling tower that was built possibly quite early on, towards the onset of the war, before or just after the war started. That was not completed, but the infrastructure was laid for it to be a cooling tower. If it was used for something else, I haven't seen any evidence of that. And for the Bell to be flying around, hovering in between there, I don't think that's where we need to look. I think we need to look at the pipes that continues flowing through the technical tunnels and into the mine shafts and into the mountain. Lots of collapsed tunnels. I don't know if you saw, I tried to crawl into all of them, and there's so much underground there that has been destroyed that's relatively close to the surface. But there's also the tunnels that are leading into the mountain. We're going to have to do a friend of mine that you will Alex, that a Polish gentleman, you'll get to see in the episodes. We crawl through very energetic Polish veteran that's deployed 7 years. He's a doctor as well, decorated wounded veteran, Polish guy, good guy, with way more energy than I have. We crawled through every hole we could find and saw some very interesting infrastructure out in the Riesa Mountains that is not supposed to be there. And I took pictures of it. And Farrell is not joining us until the 27th. He had something he had to do today, so he's jumping on tomorrow, Northeast. No, not tomorrow, on the 27th. I'm sorry. Guess I'm still jet lagged. But something's going on out there, and I think something is going on underground, and I think that's where we need to look, and that's where we also need to look for whatever the bill was. That was one question. I would imagine they did. All right, now. Have I used LiDAR data? Yes, we have LiDAR data on some of these. And you would look forward to seeing stuff on Napoleon and the U.S. Civil War and Russian Revolution, ancient Germanic and Roman battle sites as well. Well, Mike, yes, you will get all of these. Although you're probably going to hear about Napoleon III's battlefields first. And I'm going through all the emailed questions because, well, I haven't done it for a long time, so work with me here. A machine will it put... Yes, that's the one. That's what they did. Yes, I'm going to Bariloche. Yeah, definitely I'm going to Bariloche. And there's... Oh, and somebody sent me pictures of Ludwigsdorf's old buildings. Pictures I don't have. Thank you, Lisa. And what else we have? And here is cooling tower. The Henge, I've been going crazy for many hours gathering more info. I believe I found a positive that actually updated version of the cooling tower. Yes, you are absolutely correct. It is. That's what I am leaning on toward as well. Somebody sent me a YouTube link. I'm sorry, John. Lisa stock footage. Oh God. That means someone wrote me a very, very thank you. I knew you'd be here. No, I didn't. That was kind of. All right, Evan. You sent me a very, very long question. Which is okay. And you are telling me a story. Moving on. I love these wall bunkers. I love these wall bunkers too. Oh, by the way, at the end of this show, after an hour or two, the next episode of me crawling through the east wall will be back up, which is just fun. And one of them kind of scared the crap out of me, and you'll see why. All right, Hans Kammer. The thing that really found me is Project Riesa and Hans Kammer's connection. If it gets more intriguing by each episode, yep. Thank you. That is a compliment. I like when I get those. Okay. You're sending me compliments. I don't have it. All right, thank you. Oh, yes. Oh, I already responded to that. I was in Verdun. Yes, there will be World War I episodes. There will be Prussian War, the Prussian Wars of 1870. There will be stuff on there because I am... No. In the Great Castle shows, what I wanted to do was I wanted to go backwards with all the technologies we see on the battlefields of World War II and see where it came from. So I'm paddling my way back to castles all the way from the 12th century to demonstrate where the various features of the bunkers of the Atlantic Wall and the Maginot Line, where it all started. And we're going to work our way forward to, I found some of the firsts, like the first steel dome, the first steel observation dome, the first rotating turret, and who made them. And so we're going to go back in history and talk a little bit about how all this warfare stuff actually started, where it all came from, which is really interesting. Doesn't have anything to do with World War II secrets. However, it will show that the Prussians and the Germans were many times very more advanced in the technology and the development than their enemies, which would sort of leads us to think that during World War II, why would that be different? Um, Steel domes were mentioned. Yes, lots of those. Lots of those. Oh, there will be Franco-Prussian War, which is actually very interesting because, well, you wouldn't have gotten to World War One if you hadn't been for the Franco-Prussian War, and you wouldn't really have gotten to that if it hadn't been for Napoleon the First and coalition against him. And you can always kind of just back. World War II started hundreds of years before it actually started. Um, no, I have not played. I don't. I don't have time to watch television. Um, my grandparents were the Prussian. Where from? Because so was mine. All right, so we're multitasking. Energy storage and research. I think they were thinking far further outside the box than the Allies many times were. All right, never mind. Okay, so question number. If the bell was anything that had either something to do with enrichment or energy creation, then it would be a power plant. That's would be one thing I would guess as well. Oh, hey, Koshi, I like it out there. I like it out there. You guys okay? Um, I just I just heard back from George out in Jonastown. He said nothing had drowned, so that's good. Um, Weirdest thing. Oh, it was raining when I got there 2 months ago. It was raining when I left 2 months later, and I guess I got out just in time. I have not investigated Rome a lot. However, Rome was an interesting character, but I don't think he was particularly. Is there anything about Rome that we have not already that hasn't been covered? Uh, There, you're absolutely correct. Enrichment does not require a cooling tower. Mm, you can enrich in a lot of different ways, and the one thing the Germans were an expert at doing were miniaturizing things, which means they were more efficient at doing things than the American subsequent or the Manhattan Project, where you had thousands of people working. Um, yes, they are, and they are. Oh, well, I think one of them BMCG, one of the things that they're afraid of is that they can trace their current political structure and economic stability back to things that were built by the SS or under Nazi supervision during the war, and that it's still there, and everybody made money on it, and nobody looks good. And at this point in time, I said, well, who cares? And what really pisses me off is thousands and thousands of people died building things that we can't even be allowed to dig to find out what were, because somebody still have an agenda against that. And I think that is it is not untypical of governments to not particularly care about their soldiers or about people, especially when they're already dead, because well, they're dead. Um, so they can sort of ignore them, and some countries certainly have done that. And because there are at the end, like I said, at the end of the second season, there will be places where I can tell this underneath where I am standing today. You will find some of the things you're looking for. Because I found a really good idea. Sometimes a little bit, it's on the other side of this mountain is exactly what you're looking for. But there are two places for sure that I know if we could get the permits, we would find something that would be absolutely staggering and probably change the status quo if we can get the permission. So all we can do is lay out the evidence like a court of law, which is what I'm trying to do with that series, is lay it all out. And here's all the documentation. It's a circumstantial court. If we were in a hypothetical court, would a judge not say, yes, there's something there, you should be allowed to dig? All we can do is turn public opinion. Because just like when you start any war, before you go to war, you need to turn public opinion. So if we paint a picture of this is exactly what happened and document it and make it as clear cut as possible, hopefully that can turn enough public opinion to the various officials, because I don't think a lot of them are not covering this up because they even have an idea what they're covering up. That's just what they do. And it's better to say no than say yes, because if you say yes, then somebody gets in trouble. So we just always say no. And that's what they do. But they don't really, I say a lot of these smaller officials have no idea why they're saying no. So if we really shake the tree, maybe somebody higher up is going to go like, well, why are we actually hiding this? Because there's a new generation of politicians all throughout. None of them can be blamed for this. Yes, he was. He went back to Bolivia for a while until they needed him in 31 to solidify the SA that was kind of trying to break away from the party, because Hitler didn't want to put them on any of the election platforms, and he was putting more focus or energy in Himmler's SS than the SA, and the SA were being a little pissy. Granted, they did all the street fighting. Well, pissy is the wrong word. The SA had been used as the shock troops, as the barroom brawlers, as keeping the party meetings secure and safe, and a lot of them got hurt, and there was no money for any of them or anything or medical, and they were not even now being put on the party polls in the elections in 31 and 32. So they were starting to divorce from the party, and Hitler was trying to keep them all together. And by bringing in Röhm back to Germany to keep them all together, that's kind of why they brought him in, or brought him back. Also knowing that he was very gay, and that was something that they could use against him later on, which would eventually lead to the downfall and dissolution of the SA. So if you think that they were thinking far ahead, bringing Röhm back to run the SA, literally into the ground by discrediting it, because he would be an easy scapegoat. Although the relationship between him and Himmler was cordial, it was still, he was always on borrowed time, and I think he overestimated his position because they thought he had one. But I think when they brought him back to sacrifice him. That's just a hunch. When he wanted to make it, yes, he did. Yes, well, William, he wanted the SA to take over everything. He had ambitions, certainly, but top three sides look. Yeah, someone asked me that before, isn't it? I mean, running into a third nuclear reactor of Deepness in the little non-conspicuous house was in the basement. That was surprising. That was really cool. The cement tunnels were so enormous, and that was amazing. Just to see something that big underground. All right, checking into a hotel in the middle of a little motel in the middle of nowhere at 11 in the morning or in the evening, and getting out of the car, turning the corner, and there's a bunch of people sitting in a bar smoking cigars, and there's a golden retriever puppy running around playing with everybody. That was a highlight. Sorry, golden retriever puppy. That sort of beats the henge. Gotta say. There's the non-assuming. I just wanted to go through the. There are so many amazing locations. The East Wall location that I'm putting up now is a little. There's a surprise. Sometimes when you walk through and you have an idea what you'll find, and then all of a sudden you you find something surprising, and you go like, "Holy hell!" That's kind of cool. That is interesting. There's that little bunker, but some of the large tunnels were. Well, okay, what was really interesting? There's two things that was interesting throughout this trip. Was there is such a thing as the ancient Viking god of explorers and military historians that watches over us, I think. Well, there must be, because there were so many times where I would, oh, I'm just going to go by here. I know I can't get in. It's sealed up. I don't know anybody to contact. And I show up, and magically there's just somebody doing something, and the gates are open. You go, oh, you go have a look. At locations I had no way of seeing, and it just happened. Oh, you can't get in there. There's always security. Someone told me as I left a place that I explored for 3 hours and filmed everything. You go like, really? I guess I missed them. There's just a lot of times where everything just went right. The rain got in the way. The drone will fly in the rain. By the way, it will also fly into a whole bunch of things, which it did. Freaking astronauts in 1945. Yeah, probably not. Thank you. Yeah, but there were some places that was very Metz as a town to visit in France was phenomenal. A beautiful, beautiful town. Good food, except apparently the war is still on because you can't eat in the restaurant between 3 and 7. The restaurant's open, the kitchen's closed. Yeah, if we invade France again, I'm telling you, we're going to have to fix those kitchen rules because the French, no. Why I got missile? Yeah, yes, I like those. And then there's some places I will visit again, but definitely Metz is Metz. I will definitely visit again because that was just a beautiful town. And Metz is a town that is 1,000 years old, 3,000 years old, and there's a church from 451. The cathedral is gorgeous, and there's a city wall that was built 800 years ago, and that's been upgraded. That was still seen battle damage from 1944. And you have all these forts surrounding it to protect it. That's all Battle of World War I, World War II. And there's a couple of the forts that I snuck into surrounding Metz that really interesting. Really, really interesting. I did not get to visit Vogelsang because Germany was a lot of stuff going on in Germany right now. So I decided to not spend a whole lot of time anywhere near big cities in Germany. And yeah, so don't worry, I still have another list, and as you know, I'm gonna have to edit it a little bit, and hopefully we'll get to go again. Can you visit places in America? Where the German American one used? Ooh, that would be interesting. Yes, the German Bund, or the German Nazi Party in America in the 30s were very strong, very large, and they had some interesting rallies. I would imagine some of those venues are still in place. So yeah, I could probably find some of those. Still part of the U.S. government, right? Well, I think we always talk about how the Nazis continued existing after the war, and they did, and the SS, parts of the SS existed after the war, and they did, and how but they didn't continue to exist in the sense of here's a secret Nazi party. They believed what they always believed, but they merged into a different. They found a fourth way. This is where Joseph would have written a book on that. They blended back in the establishment and maintained their allegiances to one another and to what was, but they always knew that there was a part of, like, the racial part of National Socialism disappeared, because that would it wouldn't work after the war for obvious reasons. It wouldn't be a selling point for a future Fourth Reich for obvious reasons. So it became a different organization that used politics and economics and business as always. Business has always been the key to what was going on and how and why wars started and was fought and run. If you take all the business and business profits out of the equation, how many wars would there really be? Um, I don't think NATO is the biggest issue. That was sort of just a natural reaction to what was happening. I think you have to look at something bigger or something smaller with more power. Um, uh, well, thank you. German mushroom beer. Oh God, German mushroom beer. Hmm. Yes. Uh, I tried mushroom coffee. Did not go over well. Uh, das ist es. It has always been about money. Yes, it has. That is exactly what it has. And World War One and World War Two, large part of the push to continue World War One was from the industry, and it's hard to see if, with the close ties, and of course, the moment that Germany lost the war, no one was a Nazi. Had nothing to do with it. We didn't do it. We were just compelled to, and none of the businesses did it. And no, which was on one hand a deliberate part in order to survive, which is natural. You can't really blame them for distancing themselves from something that just lost um, and was being replaced or eradicated. Of course they did, but you wonder how much did they actually have to do with it? How much how intertwined the Nazi Party, the SS, and the German large industries and businesses and financiers were is probably something that is a little scary. And it's not exactly something that is, well, if we look at the world today, who's really running things? Is it the elected politicians that we know? Well, you ask yourself that question. Yes, I'm doing something on the did I? Did you not ask me that last time? Yes, I will. I just cannot do everything on my own. One of the things, well, I can. I just rhubarb beer. Okay, I'll try that. I'm rhubarb beer. I'm good with. Um, well, yeah, the Ostwald was because everybody's looking for metal, and there's just a lot of it, and it was in Poland, Russian occupied, and no one cared about the historical importance of any of it. No one cared about that in France either, or in Belgium. Domes were just cut away everywhere in all these old forts, and the tanks were melted down, and there was very little. There was very little forethought for the future of these locations' historic value, which is very sad. But I found some of them that a lot of people, and there's some amazing people out there trying to restore these things that really, really need some help and support, and we'll try to figure that out. I'm not rich, so but there's got to be a way to help some of these guys that are trying to restore um, some phenomenal locations, both in France and in Belgium, Germany and Austria. There are some locations that absolutely um, needed need to be rescued. Joan, outstanding. Is he still alive? Joan, I was not saying if they're saying this. But yeah, they really are. Um, I, yeah, well, digging is one thing, but actually, maybe we could do that. We could start bringing people out for a month trip where they go out and help restoring some of these old forts for a month. But it's still, they still have to travel and have to be fed, and that there's somebody would say liability or somebody get hurt or something. But yeah, me and my lack of wearing helmets. Um, so many orphans. Love you, Willie. Thank you. Yay. Well, I was supposed to have been to Norway. I was supposed to have been in Norway, and I don't read much of my Facebook. I really don't, because I put stuff up and then I go away, because Facebook has been not very nice to me. And well, they haven't been nice to a lot of people, but there's just some crap floating around that they don't give a damn about. So um, they can stick it. I will go through my Facebook mails more, I promise. Um, Direct email, as we can clearly tell, since I haven't answered many of them lately. There's really a lot for me to do. I really spend a lot of time editing this. But I will be in Norway. Hopefully, I'll be in Norway in a couple of months. I couldn't get in this time because we had 7 days of quarantine, and I really didn't want to spend the time sitting in a hotel. I really didn't want to spend the time sitting in a hotel. Damn it. Thank you. So I will be in Norway. Hopefully, I'll be there in September, August, September, depending, as soon as I can travel back out there. Also Finland, also England. Uh, anyway, yeah, so it's like my Facebook does not. Like I said, I'm not a big Facebook person, and I don't always read the messages, and sometimes they get put in a spam or a junk, and with all the other, death threats and hate mail. So I just basically don't read them. The only place I really get hate mail is Facebook, which is why I'm like, all right, fine, bite me. I love the Canary Islands. That was the last vacation I went when with my mom when she was still alive. We went to the Canary Islands. The rocket base I did not know. If you have anything on that, do send me, because I'd love to see that. One day I will go back to the Canary Islands. One day. It'll be a little while. There's some memories there that'll be a little while. There's also a submarine base I wanted to see out there. But yes, I want to paddle up and down Norway, and I was supposed to have met up with the history hunter, and we were supposed to have done something. Um, that just happens. Exactly. That's what I was doing. I was paddling through the emails here that I was going to answer. I knew there was something I was doing. Oh, and I'm also, no, I have not talked to Tim Kennedy. We have not come across one another, um, ever. Um, what, uh, I got to go out and visit Drac, and I'm going to talk him into doing a whole bunch of castles with us. Thank you so much. I would love to see the photos, and I will love to come back to the Canary Islands at some point when I can do it without deep depression and alcoholism. Um, it's only good memories, but sometimes memories are memories. Anyway, I'm going to start to upload to Patreon, which I've spent a little time trying to figure out. Patreon is just driving me crazy because I don't know what to do with it. Now I figured out the only thing I don't want to do a whole lot of with it without being able to give you something that's actually worth being there for. Because, yes, that too. What I decided to do is I'm going to get a Vimeo account, which I have to. Then I'll upload all the movies I've made that I own, and yes, I'll put all my movies and episodes up there, and then make them members only on Patreon. So you can actually get to see all the episodes on there without the commercials. That's the best start I can do. Because I have the Patreon set up, but I've got to make it actually worth it without also having to do, like I said, I have 50 episodes I have to edit. I have to put it all together so it actually makes sense what I'm telling you guys. And time, money, cost. So I'm trying to slowly do everything. Plus, every episode takes a whole bunch of research time. If I don't have it, and that's well, the Anunnaki was up there because they had an idea that that's where the original Aryans came from. I think it was more of a status trip, saying we are here because we can, and nobody could have gone to Tibet before, so they did. It didn't really do anything for anything except it was a Sivas who wanted to keep coming back. Um, Now we're back to questions. It's a serious change. I will go to California. Somebody's saying they want to go to California. Raphael, have you thought about that? We're all trying to get out. Um, Let me see. I probably should have gone through these and find out which ones are questions. You could roll. Hey, Cook. There's some. I did spend some time going through a lot of these locations with some absolutely amazing people that I can't wait to introduce you to. Okay. Okay, so a lot of you sent me compliments and not actual questions. Hmm. I was going to ask you questions, but there's all this. Okay. Something else just after. Okay. There's. All right. We're just going to do this then. Waste not wasting this. All right. What am I missing? What are you doing without me? Fears Bueller's Day off and make quarantine. Police come to check on you. Yeah, yeah. I'll just wait for them to come. That's see. That's just about being in a place where they're not going to come check on me ever. Stick it. Um, I think the question was okay. Fortress in France. Was there still wall drawings? Which fortress are we talking about? Wolf? Sorry, maybe Selby. Maybe I missed something here. Um, Olf, which fortress we're talking about? Because there's quite a bit of wall art on some of them, especially the ones built by the Prussians after the Prussian-Franco War, and some of the wall art back from the 1870s, 1880s is absolutely amazing. And of course, if I could figure out how to drag a photo over here, I could show you some of them, but that's not going to happen. So, Reichsführer und ein Ball. Mit ein Ball? Um, don't talk to me in code here. I'm not that smart. And I don't know if any of you guys saw out there in Texas, the USS Texas is back open as a museum, open for 4th of July. Where were the Cumberland well defended by fortifications? Not Okay, not in that sense where you'd have a factory in the center and then you would have a rings of fortified bunkers and anti-tank cannons and all that set up to defend. They were they were defended by active checkpoints, but the production facilities they set up were set up inside so far inside German territory that fighting the Russians were not or somebody else was not an active issue, but you had security of like concentric rings of security and checkpoints, and of course armed guards, anti-aircraft weaponry, um, bunker checkpoints, smaller pillboxes, access control, that kind of thing, but not set up to defend a factory outright against an oncoming Russian or American armed forces invasion. So in that sense, no. All right, I saw it. Let's see about a concern over the right-wing extremist groups in Germany. Oh, you will only see documentaries about right-wing any kind of extremism, because the others are, if they're even investigated, are certainly not gonna hit the news anywhere in the world. It is only people who have any kind of patriotic inclination that will be pasted as a negative or a danger to any kind of security these days. That is just the way the political and media ball has bounced. Any kind of leftist danger um, or societies or terrorist groups, we don't talk about them. Uh, sad. Oh, the Vril Society. Yes, I can tell you about the Vril Society. Um, I didn't do much, and it might not even have existed in the sense that it actually had anything going on for it. There were societies like the Thule Society, and there were a lot of small esoteric subcharters and esoteric organizations coming out of World War One that was very big and very popular. But when you talk about the Vril Society, from what I have found, I'm still working on the documentary on the Ananaba, and what makes it hard is there's so much gossip. For instance, like Maria Orsic and her complete and utter lacking of existence. It's also a bit of a problem. There's a lot of these organizations that have been propped up as if they existed during the time of the war or leading up to the war, but no one have ever, there's no contemporary information or documentation on them, but they have been, seem to have been promulgated somewhere in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Um, just like Maria Orsic, no one's ever heard her name until it was like the late 70s. Somebody wrote a book, and I think a lot of stories were created after the war, maybe from gossip. Um, it's hard to say, but certainly not all of them. Um, Not all of them actually existed. And if they did, they had no bearing on anything. Himmler was not particularly interested in the esoteric of the occult. I certainly don't think Hitler did. He was much more of a pragmatist. Most of the top SS leadership or Nazi Party leadership, well, there are some very interesting people. Um, some of them were weirdos, and some of them were opportunists, and some of them were criminals. And the people who actually did something were very pragmatic people. Yes, Maria Orsic wasn't really real. She didn't actually exist. And the pictures you've seen of her has been doctored. One of them was actually a woman's face with fake hair put on a picture of Hitler. And I'm going to cover that in my documentary on the Ennenabe. There's no birth certificate in her name that was ever issued. Um, there's none of, see, we say Maria is from Zagreb, Croatia, but the problem is there's no birth certificate. No one ever actually have ever seen or heard of her in any contemporary information. There's no documentation the woman ever existed, and all of the photographs we've seen of her is fake. That all kind of a problem. Um, so, and I'm still waiting to hear back from some of the offices to see if there's actually any chance of anybody by that family name in that rough, generally in that time. Um, there were yeah there's some very there's some astrologists that was working for the SS, and okay, yeah, that is probably I know, especially for the people who said they are her reincarnation. That's a bit of a problem there. Um, one of the what am I going with this? The the, the astrologists, okay, we'll give it to the Germans for trying everything. And they did. They tried everything. Even some guy tried to convince Himmler to give him money because he could make fuel out of water. And basically, he tried to scam Himmler, the head of the SS, which just seems like a really stupid thing to do. So he ended up in a camp. Um, Come on, that's just deservingly so. You try to scam the head of the SS in the 1930s. That just seemed like a bad idea. And they tried. They pulled out a lot of the card readers and dowsers and tried to find submarines. And so far, there's been no records of any actual and any actual success of any of it. And the same thing with Maria Orsic and her women and that whole the Vril Society and that whole esoteric section. There's no contemporary evidence that it existed. But there are a lot of smaller and interesting esoteric organizations that sprung up, and people had a lot of interesting beliefs, and a lot of them, same thing in America, same thing in Britain. It was all over the world. It was sign of the time. So if there was something that could have turned into the story of her, that's possible. A lot of the Ananab documents are still haven't really been gone through or read, and that's going to take quite a bit of time and research. And the problem is, a lot of them are in different libraries around the world that has to get gotten to, and it's just one of those things. It's we'll get to it, or I'll find a researcher who have really dove into it, which I'm trying to do. Somebody who has read into this, but as of right now, for everything I have read and seen and found and not found, the Vril Society and Maria Orsic, that seems to be kind of a dead end story, because there's no actual documentation they existed, which is not what anybody really want to hear. But if you come up with a story from the 1970s or 80s about these fantastic women and things that happened, well, that's great, but that's still 40 years after the fact. So anyway, Hitler lost Valiant. Oh, yeah, he didn't enjoy the war at all. Didn't serve him any meat. Well, must be terrible to wage war as a vegetarian. Wow. Who looks Jewish? And how the hell did we get to this part of this conversation? Am I part of any of this argument that you guys are having right now? All right, that looks interesting. Meanwhile, I'm just going to. What are you guys doing? Other people look at you. Oh, okay. Right, moving on. Oh, wonderful to be the narrator of this. Proof that Paul Hauser. Don't do it. Don't publish this. Okay. You guys are emailing me a lot more compliments than you're actually emailing me questions. So I'll just go with thank you. My dear friend, being the doctor of the soul, Turkish family. Ooh, I went to Hotel Turken in Berchtesgaden that has been sold, which is right now the tunnel system is closed because Corona, they're too small, narrow, so on, so on, so on. I look very much forward to talking to the new owners and the caretakers of Hotel Turken, because somebody has really done them wrong. Hotel historians, networks, journalists, somebody has really done them wrong somewhere in the past. I'm not really sure why or how, what actually happened. But there's a lot of people in that part of Austria who are very, very, that's fine, who are very, very not happy with what has been said or done um, about the time of the war and their region. And it's it's very interesting because couldn't quite figure out. I met this very very angry woman who was very bitter about her treatment of by networks. Leads me to think that there's something more to be said about the region of Berchtesgaden and Hitler's house and the tunnels and what was taking place there during the war, than we have been told after the war. There's just, sometimes it's a little remark that people give you that that there's something odd going on there, and or something that's not entirely correct. And it's not like we're not used to history being somewhat miswritten or well, misinterpreted, shall we say, especially after that war. And I think one of the things was that there's two sides of every story. There's also two sides of the National Socialist story. There's two sides of the Hitler or the Himmler story. Himmler was very popular with his men. He was took great care in taking care of his men. He was friendly to his neighbors, and he seemed to have been an honorably honest person who believed what he believed and did what he did, because that's what he believed were correct. But as a person, a lot of the people around him generally liked him. And after the war, everybody was hung out to dry, because no one would admit to any such thing. Same thing, probably what happened in Berchtesgaden. A lot of business was probably brought in, a lot of money was spent, contractors were working, and for some years it was probably not as bad of a place or situation as we have since been told, which might be why they're tired of having only that one side pushed. That and it's interesting when you go to most museums in Germany or Austria, even the ones at Berchtesgaden, it is all about it's all about the Holocaust. In every museum, every picture that is what it's all the museums pretty much contain, and they don't really talk about what actually took place on the actual site, which fine. We need to talk about all aspects of what happened during that war. But if you go to locations or museums that are set up in locations like U-boat pens, or it is back where Hitler's house was, or the tea house, or whatever, I think we need to talk about have a museum, have a display, talk about what happened there with the people that visited and the dignitaries and the ins and outs. And I think that is something that is missing in Germany, is a full 360-degree presentation of the war, because they're only presenting a 10% of what happened during this war and representing the 10% or 7% of the victims of that war, where everyone else is being missed and forgotten. My opinion, should all battlefields and old forts be preserved? Oh God, here's your opinion. Has my opinion changed since crawling around some of these historical sites? Angel, thank you. I love you. Now, this is where I get in trouble. Yes, they should all be preserved. All of them. They should be encased by barbed wire, protected by dogs and men with guns, so nobody can paint graffiti on them. They should be rebuilt, every single one of them. However, if we do that, we will be inundated with military history at every single street corner, everywhere in the world, and we will be spending a lot of money on every one of them. I'm still going to go with yes, they should all be preserved, because people died there. People died for them. People died in them. They should all be heritage sites. And I think France and Belgium really needs to, and Holland, needs to wake up to this. You're not calling me a moron, are you, young man? I think they should, because they're important. And some of these countries have completely neglected a lot of their military heritage sites. Germany's destroying them, burying them. Even in Poland, they are sort of trying to restore the ones who are still sort of left. But I think it is so insanely important. And especially when you have in the West, now that I did crawl through so many of them, and I am at every single one of them, I am more and more impressed at especially the ones that were built in the late 1800s. They are elaborate. They are gorgeous. Um, some of them have the most fantastic masonry and decorations. The way they were set up. Some of these forts are just works of art, and I think that's that. Yes, I think they should be preserved. Um, but and none of them are in the way of anything, really. So, uh, yeah, I think more a little bit of help should from the government has no interest in many of these countries. There's no help. There's only volunteers, and they only work on their own money. And I really think if anything we can figure out down the line, we can find out to help these people restore some of these forts and some of the Belgium, Holland, France. A lot of them built by the Prussians. They're just amazing. And if you have a fort that's built in Prussian, yes, I am listening. Um, if you have a fort that's built in Prussia by the Prussians after the Franco-Prussian War in France today, well, the French don't give a damn about preserving it because it's not even built by them. They don't even care about preserving most of their own forts or Maginot Line forts. Yes, I know Germany wants to move on, but they can't move on unless they at least open the full chapter of everything that happened and tell everybody the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can't live otherwise you're living on a lie. You can't live a denazification life for the rest of your life. You need to tell everybody what was. Star forts. Could we please preserve the star forts like they did in Holland? Gorgeous, it's phenomenal. Works, and now people are living them, which is really expensive, and I'm really jealous. Except, of course, they're surrounded by mosquitoes. But yes, I did a couple of star forts, and they're awesome. Um, Somebody was kind enough to ask me if she asked the question, so yes, you can. Um, uh, no, it won't happen, and I know it's none of it. There's so many things that should be, but people they don't take history serious. They just look forward, and when I look forward, I just see cell phone credit cards and crap. Um, what mirror? It's still in one piece. Larry was there. Germany spent such short building tunnels and account. It seems that it's likely that the U.S. have been deep underground. Yes, from what I am hearing, we're building a lot of interesting stuff underground that no one knows about. We don't know why, and interesting connections. So yes, I think you're probably right. Um, some things are being built, and some things are being done that we're not privy to. And I think that's one of those things that I would love to talk more about with Joseph. Um, all right, Lai, you asked me why I reflect on the story about the town. Hell, oh, I missed Hell. I really wanted to have gone there. I just could not make everything at the same time. Um, I know about the torpedo test facility, and I know about Hell, and I know there's something very interesting um, going on in Hell that, like, there were several special weapon testing facilities around and setups, labs set up in their various different parts of Germany and Poland, and one of them was in Hell, single L, not Hell, which is a beautiful town by the beach in Poland. And yes, there's a torpedo test site there as well. And there was a lab um, there that I'm going to cover more when we come into the Kamla stop, because what was later integrated into the Kamla stop actually had a research facility out there in a building in Hell. So I have to go to try to figure out more about that. Um, uh, I don't know what is true about the heavy water. Did I miss? Where are you? So far, we're fairly good at snapping off each other's comments and reading each other's minds, but I don't know. What about the heavy water? Um, After the channel tunnel was built, they only brought up one Well, after the channel built, they covered up the Lindemann bunker. Um, I guess that was in the way. Sorry. Um, yeah, there's that one. That's Operation High Jump. Well, I talked a lot about it with Drakinefeld when we did our live. I don't know if you saw that one. Drake and I, we did it live for 3.5 hours, where we did talk a little bit about that, and it's not offhanded. When you look at it just a little closer, it is not as conspiratorial or as you might have been led to believe from what I can see on the surface of it. Um, yes, Michael, you're absolutely correct. Um, Send Lennon on a train to Nova Scotia and take a ship to. Yes, yeah. Lenin, Trotsky. Um, so Trotsky was in New York. We sent everybody there, which would lead to the Russian Revolution, which would pull Russia out of the war, which would have more Germans face the Allies to the West, which all seemed like a really bad idea. And they did it anyway. Me do a short show with Mark Felton. Um, okay. Anything you would like me to talk to Mark about? Like I said, I'm going to England. I believe he's in England. Oh, the chieftain, he fled. Um, Washington. I really do like parts of French. There's parts of French I really did like. Yes, yes. Um, yes, no. Yes, no. Affirmative. Yes, no. Um, well, if we, I can reach out if I come across anything we really want to talk about. Um, yes, Scorsese did work for the Mossad. Yeah. We could do a movie on Scorsese, and we probably would have if Germany had won the war. There are probably a bunch of movies on him. The rescue of Mussolini as well. There's a lot of very interesting things that man he did do that we know he did. Um, Henry Ford in the Brown House in 1931, behind Hitler's desk was a picture of Henry Ford. Just thought you might want to know that. Yeah, well, I know who Mark Felton is. I just never came across him. I don't know if he goes to any of the historical events or have written any books that I have read. But at some point in time, the War and Peace show will be back on, and I'm sure we can all get to run into each other again, which would be interesting. Yes, I want to do battlefield tours and beer halls. Yes, that's where we will end up in Austria, drinking beer and eating schnitzel, because Lord knows in Austria they know how to cook. Um, yes, I'm still planning on doing battlefield tours when we can, because when everybody can get in and out, and we don't have whatever's hovering over us. I want to do several months a year where we do 2 or 3 week um, 2 or 3 week trips around Europe and seeing maybe one in the east and one in the west. Because believe me, there's some stuff in France and Belgium that is just staggering, and I can't wait to show you the episodes for there. Uh, do you know about the SS Nazi item seen by ARG? Um, Not unless. Um, oh, yeah, yes. Oh, yeah, the raid in Argentina. Thank you. Uh, yeah, where they raided all those items. From what I understand, is none of them have been released or handed back. And what I don't understand is why they are illegal. Um, they're desk items, reading glasses, books, posters, and so on and so forth. So when I go to Argentina, if that collection is still sitting in that police storehouse, from what I understand, is the Holocaust Museum in Buenos Aires have taken possession of them, and then they might be there. I mean, I guess that's where they would be now. Um, but I think there's a lot of busts and a lot of things sitting around everywhere in the world that just hasn't come to light. And I think that was it was an interesting. I never really did figure out why this was illegal. It's not like there's a box of teeth fillings or what have you. It was busts, and I mean, I don't know why a bust of Adolf Hitler would be illegal, other than in Germany, because it's a historical memorabilia. But when I go to Argentina, I will try to find the collection, find out what is so special about it, and show it to you. So, Al's news, I will get back to you in more detail on that when I get there and get some idea of exactly what that was. And yes, the tea houses. Well, there's only one tea house left. Um, the Eagle's Nest is still left. The small tea house was demolished some years ago, and Lord knows they know what to charge you. The food's good up there. Don't get me wrong, beautiful views, great place, amazing building, construction. He did. I went there and I filmed it, but that's someone I'll show you too. Um, the tea house is something else, but I want like 27 euros for the mandatory bus trip up the mountain per person, which is it's ridiculous. And there's a restaurant up top and a coffee shop, and we can also walk up. It's what 1,700 meters above sea level. So if we're all in good shape, we can walk up, see the tea house. They're very nice people, the people who run it up there. Um, yes, well, when there's a handle on the COVID thing, we will do tours, because I would love to spend half the year in Europe showing around, because it's a lot more fun to see these places with someone. And there's a lot of holes in the ground. So if you fall in, I'm just saying, you'll get food for a few days, and if you're still alive, we'll get you a rope. But other than that, you're on your own. Just saying, don't die. And if you do, not my fault. Just saying. Um, um, Daryl, my PayPal is on the website lostbattlefields.com. Thank you. Um, I, I was never much for asking for. Well, the less I have to go to any kind of a day job, the more time I can dedicate to editing and traveling. So that's where the help goes. Girls love Mike Felton. I'm younger, probably singular. I have no idea what this conversation is. Um, they were very expensive. Yeah, yes, the parts. Yeah, these are high class items and busts and bronzes and things that went to that collection that they rated. Absolutely, that was valuable. I just still don't. I'm still not entirely clear on and the big things too. Still not clear on why they're actually illegal. And if they were stolen, who were they stolen from exactly? Um, Most of the original owners are probably dead. Oh, you tried? No, there are people that hike up to the Eagle Nest. I kept standing on top, watching them come up, looking like they were gasping for air, looking like near death. Um, but then again, that's how I felt when I had to pay 27 damn euros to get in the bus. Um, but yeah, the hike takes a couple hours. Um, well, Werner von Braun said all the right things, and we needed him because he also knew what he was doing. And if you know what you're doing and someone needs you, it doesn't really matter what stupid crap you've done, you'll get a job. I mean, Look at Washington. Oh, did I say that? Oh dear. Yes, occasionally I do have a day job, which um, a couple of days a month I will put on a uniform and go play soldier and do very little there. But occasionally I also do a little bit of consulting, and occasionally I actually do movies, as you may know. That sometimes I just could I please Hollywood start getting parts that does not involve me being the evil Nazi? I just do it really well. It would be, we're doing them, but we're starting doing a bike movie. But I have a World War II film that will be coming up, that we'll be almost done with now, and I will probably put that up on my Patreon so you can see it, even if it's not released. So there. Um, get back to get back with though. Yeah, yeah. Yes, I am. Where's your next research location? Earth. I don't know. Well, I got to go back. Well, I have to go see the Bergkastel tunnels if they can be bothered opening them in October. So I got to go back to Austria, and then I have to go back to Czechia because there's a couple things there. So that's two on the list. And if the weather's with me, I want to go down. Have to go to Hell, um, and I go to Norway, and again, depending on the situation, hopefully there's 10 castles I want to do in England. That has nothing to do particularly with World War II. Wrong. Nothing to do with World War II at all. Most special bunker structure of the last trip. The V2 test site I found in Austria that has not been destroyed. Really, it's the only one left in the world. That was impressive. And the cement tunnels where Kamla made rocket fuel and they were going to have built rockets in, or they made fuel. That was fantastic to see how large it was. There are buildings inside the tunnels. So there's some of them, but I mean, some of the National Line forts are just staggering. And there's one of them in Belgium where they tested special weapons on, and that's going to be one of the earlier episodes I'm going to do because I just have to show it to you, where you see Germans weapon testing going through 30 meters of ground and penetrate reinforced cement tunnels underneath and hit them in 1942-43. Actually fire a projectile through 30 meters into reinforced, coming out, void detection. When the warhead detected that it came to the void, it would explode. And we saw those, and you think, well, that's something new stuff. No, the Germans did that during the war. That was impressive. And to see all those impacts, just the fact they can hit them. I mean, how do you even know where to hit a tunnel under 30 meters of dirt, but there's nothing above to note where it is? That was so amazing. And that's a place I will take you to, and that I really hope we can help them really restore this place, because this place was shot to shit. They shot, everything was destroyed during the fighting until they had no more ammo, and they walked out with the Germans saluting them as they did so. So yeah, Dover Cliffs, yes. I mean, England has so many castles for the past 1,000 years. That's really something that I really want to see and spend a little time on. But that's more for the other show. Yes, it does take special permission, but you can go. But if you can go, can you? Well, you can go to Antarctica, and can you then roam free? Well, you probably can, but where are you going to go? Do you know where what you might want to see is? Might be on the other side. So I don't know, a detailed overflight of Antarctica. I would love to see some more photos. The first Nazi joystick, yes. I did. I think I did with the wire guided bomb, and the Fritz X had a little joystick. Yeah, I mean, they just had so much. Dutch Belgium. Oh, are we dividing Belgium up in Dutch and French now? There's so much going on out there when it comes to the. I'm just going to call it Belgium because No, I know where you go. I know that that's the whole thing. So would the penguins be running away from these strange subterranean heated tunnels or towards them? Yeah, that's a question. You got to know penguins. Um, wait, keep us hooked. Um, well, Mark Felton also does not, to my knowledge, travel around the world and film this stuff in real life, which makes things take a whole lot more time. Just saying, it's not a competition. We all do what we do. I just want to see it. Yes, exactly. We get all the different. Oh, there's so many different groups, and we talked about that when I went back to Ibn Amal about all the different groups in Belgium that wanted different things and had different opinions, and we that the use and the Germans used that historical infighting to their advantage to some degree by trying to split the sides. It was very interesting, but in every conflict, there are multiple facets of it that we can all look into. But at some point in time, it ceases being interesting or ceases being about the actual battle or about the fort. It starts becoming a whole dive into the sociology of that particular region. I don't think we actually. I don't think we want that. I don't think you guys want that. I did study sociology, and mm, yeah, great. Did I see that deep wall in Fortress Evenemal? Yeah, the one out back where there's the little looks like Caponieri, um, full of holes on one side, because the Americans used it for target practice after they took it. Yeah, I saw it. What the hell? It's like could Americans show up somewhere to rescue something and then they use it for target practice afterwards? Like, just God, stop it. Um, I heard that story a lot of times. Like, no, they took the place and then they just shot it up. Like, oh, thanks. Uh, during the painful Holocaust, so should the crown. There's so much. Yes. Great way to make a living. Well, so far, it's costing me a lot more money than I'm actually making on it. I'm doing it because it's fun. It needs to be done. And then I get to chat with you guys. What am I filming? Yeah, I do. Well, I don't have any quarantine police around here that I'm aware of. Although the wonderful, in his infinite, complete lack of intelligence, governor we have here in California, and same thing goes for the mayor here, decided that we should put on masks in the indoors. Um, um, yeah, we. Yeah, come to my house. Um, could I was informed by the guy who found it that it was access for a door. So we shall see. Yeah. You know what I would actually love to do from a historical point of view? Um, I would love to retry the Nuremberg trials with all information given to all parties uh, and actually have it out in a proper court with a proper jury without bias with all information. Uh, of course, that's never going to happen. Um, yes, I know that's a problem with sometimes working in the film business. I have to be stuck in California for a little while. However, why do you think I want to spend half the time in Europe digging through bunkers instead? But I am looking for a different state that's more fun. But this is where the work is. Yeah, but I want to do an actual trial. I really want to do the trial with all the information. Um, and really, really do it. The problem is it's not going to happen because I think we will find out that when we no longer are allowed to coerce witnesses or sort through the documentation for the prosecution, and defense is not allowed. If the defense was allowed all documentation, laws have been based on the Nuremberg trials, and the Nuremberg trials were not exactly an honest trial, and it was very much a representation of victor's justice. that is a problem, because that means we would end up rewriting history books and laws passed in various countries, and I don't think they're going to like that. But I would like to see where the chips actually would fall. Probably Spear would be hung. Um, well, I grew up playing soccer on the Atlantic Wall. That was interesting, and everybody around me, family, was one way or another involved on both sides of the war. And war is military history is interesting. Um, and I see so many parallels of what happened from World War II drawn into the world today that has an impact on the world today. And I see more and more people less and less clued in on that, and they have no idea how and why we got where we are because they don't understand the past. So that's why I think we need to start with World War II and World War One, because they're still pretty much the same war. It's about the CCP. Yeah, we could. I mean, the wonderful thing about America is we can do anything we really, really want to do if we really want to do it and put our mind to it. Problem with America is we just need to be motivated in the same direction and not 10 different directions pulling us apart. If we actually stood together, there's not a whole lot this country can't do. Of course, we would have to stand together or be united. That would be a nice thought, isn't it? That's what Lincoln said. A house divided unto itself cannot stand. So let's divide America and see what happens. Very sad. Um, okay. Hang on. I'm trying to keep up there. Russian archives, last go blank. I think the Russian archives certainly has some, but I also think there's a lot of Western archives that have a lot of stuff that just haven't gone through yet. There are still boxes unopened from the war. Um, I tell you what. Let me see how I am having a feeling. It's more sense because we still run into the same historical walls as always, and we still can't do this, we can't do that, and we still get denied. But I am seeing a trend. I see a world going in a different direction, away from really caring about what comes out from World War II, because they look like now they have a new globalist ball to play. There's something that's more interesting for them to play with. If it was a new space race or globalism or whatever it is, crazy ideas that they want to turn the world towards, that's where the focus of controlled information is going, which means that the information back from World War II and what came out of that seems to be less important to keep hidden. Just a hunch, based on practically nothing except a hunch, which would mean that a lot of this information might come out more now, or come out because they need a distraction from whatever weird stuff they're doing now. So we'll just let out some World War II secrets because that'll keep people occupied for until the next commercial break. But if we play our cards right as historians, maybe we can use that to actually get some of information that we've been hoping we would get for the past 80 years. Okay, hang on. I'm trying to keep up. Yeah, I have seen Nick Cook's visit. Yes, I have. And at some point in time, I'm going to have a sit down with Igor, and we're going to have to talk a little bit about that. Take care, else. I will see you. Turn the coming war. Yeah. Century of World War. Yes. And the 21st century, I still like the 20th century better. Okay, you're absolutely correct. But in the contemporary information of World War II or the 1930s, the name Maria Orsic has also not come up. Like I say, that a person as such was possible to have existed, absolutely. But then, what was her real name? And then why wasn't Maria Orsic named in any of the papers from the time? Because Lord knows Heydrich and Himmler kept papers on anybody. And if they were this big and important esoterically, they would have been mentioned in some sort of essay literature or report. And they're not. This so that when we're back to that's the problem. Pretty amazing with the German nuclear. Yeah, I think they did it. I think they tested something. I sure they did, and then they handed it over to the Americans who disappeared it because that doesn't fit. But that's just me. Yeah, I think there's the World War One truths that haven't gone out, but it needs to come out. It really needs to be talked about because I don't think there's a reason anymore why it shouldn't be. And even if it's part of what's flying around in space above us, fine. Uh, at this point in time, hey, at this point in time, I don't think there's anything you could put on the news that would surprise me. That's probably a little sad, but I really don't think there's anything you could start telling. Oh, the UFOs landed on the White House lawn yesterday. I'm like, okay, I wouldn't be surprised. And so this, I think, more and more of us have been desensitized to sensationalist news because that's all we get. So if we actually accidentally put in some actual information of things that actually happened, most people in the wider desensitized world of information won't really flinch because they won't know what it means. Some of us will understand what it means and we'll pick that out. And I think that is, hey, watch my war movies before you complain. They're all based on real events. That's why I made them. And so I think maybe in that environment, it would be safe for them to start letting out information that people like us have been bugging for forever. I don't know, I think World War III has been happening for a very long time. It just looks a lot different than anybody thought, and it'll take a lot longer. And if we're not careful, everything we thought we cared about will disappear in the next years. Um, yes, so that's what I think they did. I know. I mean, the news headlines are just it'll just keep us all like idiots because we don't care anymore because it's all so stupid and so ridiculous, and so we need to go from one emotion to the other emotion. And I don't think what's the point? Why even watch? Farrell will be here on the 27th. He had something he had to do today, so you stuck just with me. Um, I don't even know why the Russians would want to hide anything at this point. And if Washington keeps making fun of poking at the Russians, it would be more in their interest, the Russians, to actually reveal what they know that we knew, if that makes sense. What's the biggest secret you've not told in your? Well, if I knew what the biggest secret was, I wouldn't know. Then it had been told. Um, oh, I mean, I think it's a big secret when very high profile enemies disappear, like people like Kamala and Bormann and what happened to really happen to Himmler. Those when people like that, when the enemy disappears, I'm still wondering why did Saddam get hung in the middle of the night, dragged out of the cell? Um, Milosevic was poisoned. Gaddafi was killed. I mean, there's people was in, Intel always talks to Intel, and people like that always knows things, and they know things that we've done, and that's why they're quietly shut up. And sometimes that's fine, and sometimes it's not. Um, there are so many things that are kept secret that are truly important. Um, I'm not going to start talking about space and UFOs and the whole. What happened to Bin Laden? Could we see the body, please? Um, there are so many things that happened in history that have just not been told. Any access to former Soviet Union Eastern Front in your quest? Well, yes, as far as it goes to Poland, on the other side of Poland, I've been to Ukraine. I'm going to do the Eastern Front from the other side. Probably not going to be till next year because, well, they need to let me in. None of my passports are letting me in, those bastards. Epstein, of course, he didn't kill himself. Um, au revoir. Um, I don't know. I have questions about that. But that's the problem when we live in a fake society, news society, where half of it is fake, made up, sensationalist news. We don't no longer we don't know anymore what is real and what isn't, and that makes it hard. It makes it hard to trust anything, which may sort of be where they wanted to take this, because now is the time to start disclosing things that are real in the middle of all this, so no one really notices. Because then down the line, when the truth comes out anyway, they can also go, "Yeah, we told you a couple of months ago. You just didn't pay attention. So hey, we're in the clear." Everything. Okay. If there's one thing you need to understand about how the way the media and the politics works, this is it. This is the wisdom you can pass on to your children. It is all. You remember Muhammad Ali? You remember his famous rope a dope, where you think he's going to jab from one side, but then he strikes from the other. He creates the attention to this side, and then he strikes you with the other. Every time there's a political event, or there's a media event, or there's a crisis, you look at that crisis because that's where they draw your focus. And then you don't see what's going on in all the other directions. So whenever they yell and scream at you for look in one direction, turn around and look in all the other directions because that's where the real story is. Um, that is really as simple as it is. The media story you see is not the important one. It's what they're doing on page 8 on the bottom line somewhere. Well, now we mentioned it, but you didn't read because this thing about the cat in the tree, that was much more important. And that's pretty much where we are now. It's all, and I guess you can say false flag when it comes to most media stories, although false flags it has become, it used to be something else you would use to instigate a war or a conflict. Now it's an everyday event that happens in the media to keep your attention off the real bad things that they may be doing or may happening. Um, and it was interesting. I remember when the Kavanaugh hearing was going on. Don't want to talk politics or anything. There's no sides in this. It's just this is sort of just an example that I remember of how you can really see how things happen. When the Kavanaugh hearing was going on, it was so contested, and the Democrats and Republicans were screaming and fighting, and the press were up in arms, demonstrations, and all this was going on. And if anybody looking at this, they would instantly believe that the two parties would have nothing in common and they hated each other with a vengeance and couldn't possibly get together on anything. And in the middle of all that noise up here, over here, they signed FASB 56, which was a bill that retroactively classifies all the budgets of all government agencies retroactively, which means that now you can cover any budget you want if you deem it as a necessary for national security. The party, that was a bipartisan bill that they just signed in quietly with no one watching, meaning that now you can never go back and access these financial records, which means you follow the money if you want to learn what someone is doing. And this happened in the middle of, at a time where no one, where everyone is looking at something else. Just, it's just an example where in the middle of the noise, they did something that none of us would want them to do. Who wants our tax money, our government, to spend them in secret? Yes, some things need to be secret. Government, there, of course, national security, protecting the border, the country, or enemies. I get it. I wear a uniform. I'm fully privy to some things needs to be not to be public, but not everything. And anyway, that was my rant on that. Is there anything else we need to talk about? Yeah, pretty much. It was it Ramesses the second, all the way back in the ancient Egypt. He went to war. Of course, back in that day, you got the news from the stone tablet on the city square, where someone will read you the news of the important updates the pharaoh would tell you. He went off to a war and he got his ass kicked horribly, and this was thousands of years ago. And he knew if he came crawling back and told everybody he won this he lost this big expensive war, they would probably dispose him. So he came back and put up a big victory parade and a big victory pedestal, and told everybody how they gloriously won this war that he had horribly lost. But he was in control of the media, on the news, thousands of years ago. Nothing have changed. So yeah. Well, maybe we could have two or three other. Maybe we have two or three other internets. Then we'll be good. Maybe we could have an internet just devoted to history, no censorship. Imagine that. Even during the Cold War, we had less of that. Follow them, yeah. Vegetable police. Okay. that's all right. All right, I get it. That sounds interesting. Aryan ideology. Well, this goes back a little bit to what the Anunnaki was sort of doing, which, okay, see, it annoys me what we've been told about the Anunnaki. So the official story of the Anunnaki was these were Himmler's archaeologists that were tasked to go find an Aryan past or signs of an Aryan Germanic past that they could use to promulgate ancient German history and culture, because they used ancient Germanic history, culture, runes for their party symbols. And everything is about symbolism, even today. So, and that's what they were doing. They were looking. That's what starts to annoy me. Now there's like 250,000 people working for the Anunnaki. You have archaeologists everywhere digging and looking things. So there was a great interest on behalf of Himmler in the ancient history. So the question is, did he look, or did he tell them to create? What has been told is that he told them to create an ancient Germanic past that he could use to push the Nazi ideology. Or were they told to find one if they could? That is a little bit where I am. One thing is what we've been told. Another thing is what may have happened. I don't quite have the answer to that yet. Certainly, if you're an archaeologist at that time and you wanted a job, you would sign up with the Nazi Party because that's where the job was. Otherwise, you wouldn't be working. It's pretty straightforward. How far would you go in your findings? Did he send them all over these places to look and dig and find this culture, or did he determine for somebody to create it? If you ask me at this point, I don't think he told them to create a fake narrative. Maybe Goebbels did. I would not put that past him, because he used a lot of what the Anunnaki found, what the archaeologists found, for propaganda, and maybe he took what some of them have found and misrepresented that. But that's why the Aryan past was important, because it was all about history, and the further back they could document them as the righteous, inheritors of German culture, the protectors of German culture and heritage. They were at least tasked with finding it, and to some degree resettling Germans into Germanic villages, pulling them in from Italian regions, pulling German-speaking people back, and creating villages. There was some money allocated to that as well. And then they were looking for other pet projects like the Spear of Destiny and the Ark and all those things. Certainly, they were tasked with all of that, but it all started with the Aryan history. And I know it's a little sad because everyone has since been told, oh, Germany doesn't have much history. And they do. Germany has lots and lots of history um, for thousands of years. Whether that's what Himmler wanted to label under an Aryan blanket to use, or he wanted to create one. I'm still working on that, and I had interviews set up with the people at Wewelsburg, who are very concerned with how everything is portrayed when it comes to talking about them. Uh, Sorry, you historians, tell me, be available to other historians who is researching. So we'll get back to them, and I guess it's a good thing I didn't spend another week. I would have been reined in. Have I been able to reach out to any surviving World War II German veterans? I've been trying, but there's very, very few of them left, and I can't. I'm. One thing is, there are very few of them left, and I have to find them, and then they have to be the ones who were in a position to know, and then they're going to have to want to talk about it. That's a needle in a haystack. And I'm kind of hoping through friends of friends of friends and through what we do here and spreading the word, and eventually someone will realize that their grandparents are still alive and he was there, and ask him to talk to me. That's kind of the biggest hope. A lot of the children of the veterans who were those people don't want to talk on camera. And I guess if you were, related to high-ranking SS or Nazi official, and you kind of want to hope to work in a normal way today, you may not want to. We look at history in a different way than they do in Germany. We look at it more here. We look at it more clinical. And whatever your grandparents did, I'm not going to hold it against you. In Germany, they do to some degree, or at least hold it against themselves. It's sad. Yes, that was 250,000 people working for the Ananaba. Let's see. Hang on, where did I go? Where did you go? I only read half the question. Oh, where is it? Turning all over the world, digging, searching. I know, what did they really find? Well, that is the interesting question. They excavated a lot of archaeological sites and ancient history, and they found a lot of what archaeologists do today. They were just better funded. So they found a bunch of stuff that's sitting in museums around different places. So that's what they did. If they were looking for something, well, they found what they found, and I'm seeing Goebbels having used some of what they found, slightly rewritten, misinterpreted to his propaganda. Don't exactly. I still have not quite determined what Himmler's interest was, other than for the cause. Because if there's anything he did, he believed in the cause, and he believed in what he believed in, and he believed in the SS. More on that. I'm not going to go out too far on a limb, because there's more questions I have to answer before I actually committed into the episode. So I'll get there. I'm sure the last one what you found. What surprised me, most of what you found actually to be true for. The Nazi UFO story, and I know Joseph have talked about this several times, that he does not believe in the Nazi UFO story because there's no provenance to it. There's no credible witnesses to it. There's no documentation for it. We talk about reverse engineering Nazi UFOs crashing in Black Forest. We all heard the stories, but there's no paperwork. There's nothing, which is also possible, that everything disappeared. But still, it seems that some of those are stories that I heard them while I was there. I interviewed a Czech aeronautical historian, PhD, worked at the Air Force Museum in Prague. He heard the story about discs flying, and he was a very serious gentleman with a far better education than mine. And a lot of it did a full interview with him as well, and we're going to collaborate on some more things. Met some great people, I truly did. That really wants to try to find out what happened. So even in those circles, there are stories of what appear to be testing of disc-shaped crafts, but it's very weak. It's still second hearsay. There's just not a lot of documentation to support it. If it's true, seeing alternative flying crafts, yeah. But I think the real secret at this point, the wonderful thing about historical research is a lot of the sometimes you find out that you're completely wrong by discovering something else. So, never know what tomorrow brings. I have 2,000 new pages from the German archives that I need to start paddling my way through. So you never know what you find, but the technology sort of backs up that flying discs were not really on the table, but very specific research technologies, nuclear, far-reaching, far-sighted technology was. And I think that there's more to come on that. And even if they didn't complete that technology tree into something that's was actually working, they certainly were paddling down a direction that we need to know and understand more about, because some of that ends up in today's world. And I don't think we all understand where. You can have any unpaid job for me there is, just like mine. Okay, secret. It's interesting when you say the secrets are hidden in movies and books and TV, because there has been for many, many decades, there's been a link between intelligence networks and Hollywood. Unfortunately, the CIA is not paying me to make movies. I imagine they pay well. I imagine they do. Lord knows they have money. But there has been a lot of times where you see the military floating an idea through movies to gauge public narrative and to see opinion, see how that would float. So, yeah, you actually can see quite a lot of things coming out through movies. I'm doing a Harley Davidson movie next, and none of them are aliens. Oh, I am doing an alien biker movie at some point. I thought that sounds fun. I need to stop drinking that tea. All right, so finding gold bars. Yes, that's why I am now writing you all from my mansion in Malibu. Nope, unfortunately, no gold bars. And the Swiss wouldn't let me into their banks. Bastards. Vatican red line. Obviously, there were pro-Nazi Vatican sentiments, yes, of Nazi research benefiting from the Vatican Library. Now, that is a very interesting question, Kat. That is a very interesting question, because, well, one of the things that the Ananeva was doing was researching ancient technologies through everything from the Sumerian texts to everything else. Did they have access to the Vatican archives? The one thing the Nazis and the Vatican agreed on, or at least had in common, was that they were not particularly fond of communists or Jews. That's just a fact. But if that would extend to the part where the Vatican would actually open its doors to Nazi researchers, I don't think they would. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not basing that on anything. It's just off the cuff. I don't think they would, but they could have been. Certain things could could be handed over to them, which now brings us to, well, what is in the Vatican library and what do they know? Because certainly if somebody knows anything about anything, it's them, because they kept tabs on everybody like everybody else. So that is a very good question that I'm not entirely sure who would be in a position to honestly answer, because would they be allowed to tell if they knew? And who would know? Um, a Vatican historian wouldn't tell me, certainly. That they collaborated with the Nazis, they would never tell. So we would have to find. We're back to looking in the Ananaba papers. What did they find, and then from there figure out where they got it. Were boxes and boxes of Ananaba papers when the German archives will let people back in. Which I don't think they're open up quite yet. Yes, Eric, you are correct. David, you are correct. Yay, thank you. What did I find? What all things did you find that I can't show you on YouTube? Well, not really anything. The only thing I really can't or shouldn't be doing on YouTube is talking anything to do with current politics or opinions or any of those things. I don't think I found anything I can't show. No, I don't think there's anything in that sense that I can't show you. So I will. And if that happens, that I come across something where I don't think the YouTube really cares much about World War II history or what we're doing. Actually, from the commercials they're running, it seems to be a mutual beneficial relationship at this time. But if I ever were to come across something like that, I would stick it on my Patreon through Vimeo and make it a members only, and then you could see it there. So if ever I get to that, which is one thing I'm going to be doing anyway, putting things up through my Patreon, like movies and stuff, so you can see them there without commercials. It just takes time, and like I said, I'm doing everything myself. I'm not entirely sure, and like I said, sometimes I actually have to go to work. Yes. Inquisition. Oh, that was a bad day. Speaking of how everybody always did something bad. Until group. That's exactly correct. Not Larry Flynn. L4 Larry. Okay. Tell me about that name. I'm curious. I think the Vatican would have opened up to the. They might have done. Yeah, I think we should ask that. That's a Joseph question, or that is a question for Peter Lavende. I think maybe we should get Peter on the show and have a little chat with him. I think that might be a good. I think we should talk to Peter about that. You know what? Maybe I'm going to make a note on that because I think we should. That's the travel documents for scientists to Rome. I mean, I know they went there, and they went there because there's several documents they really wanted that the Italians wouldn't give them. So I know that some has tried, but I think that was don't remember what year that was. Not all Italians were cooperative in that sense. Well, you can join my Patreon that doesn't really do much or have anything to offer. Am I good at selling memberships for me? But yeah, I do have a Patreon, but I want to put some stuff up there. So I guys watch the movies and documentaries stuff without the commercials. So you have a reason to be there. And I truly appreciate the support because this is a lot of work. I believe the Inquisition was never disbanded by the Vatican. So we seem to see a lot of witch hunts going on these days everywhere. Just took on a different face. Hello, my dear. Oh, what images, my dear? When you write those images, which ones? And yes, he is. Finance of the Vatican, yeah. I mean, the Vatican was in bed with the CIA to get for the Cold War, and other interesting people. So, but I mean, crisis makes interesting bedfellows, and I get that. You do whatever it takes to defeat your enemy, including propaganda. But at some point in time, you probably should be accepting the fact that you can clean it up a little bit and start really explaining what really happened. Um, yes, and yes, he is. What else have I got? Montfort, visit any. I feel so bad I haven't responded to so many of these. Even though you said in the episode it was not to be told how you got out of the bunker, I was wondering how did you film it? Yes. Ginger, what bunker did I say that I didn't show which one I got out of? I forgot. I've done a few. Use your enemy to use. Yeah. How much of the CA are the Reich, and what's left over from the Reich? Well, I don't think it is a big secret to anybody that the Dulles brothers and the SS intelligence were in bed with each other, and Dulles facilitated his share of SS men coming over to work for the CIA, or for the CIA after the war, as the CIA was then created. So that the former Nazi soldiers, intelligence operatives like Klaus Barbie and many, many others were in bed with the CIA is not something you can dispute, and it's not something that's a big secret. So how much more? I mean, look at the Kammerstab structure, the SS structure was not that different than the CIA structure. And their global interest and having a finger in a little bit of everything is not really that different either. If you're a young operative that's working at the CIA today, you probably don't know any of the things that happened at the beginning. I'm sure they have a book where they said, this is our history. The guy in the office in the CIA will not know what the guy in the office next to him is doing, just like the SS. It's compartmentalized, and if one person tells, well, he can only tell what he knows. Same thing with the SS. I mean, it's not like that. The SS or the CIA was taken over by the SS in that sense. It's just the SS was set up as a very sound structure, especially when it comes to their intelligence that was set up under Reinhard Heydrich. And the whole foundation of that organization was built on was sound. So it being replicated by accident or design is not really strange. But they certainly were in bed together, and they certainly were collaborating, and they certainly used SS assets and German army intelligence assets in the years after the war, throughout the Cold War. No doubt about that. And then we can wonder about, well, money and businesses, if that's how far it extended, because I think there's part of most intelligence organizations that revolves around obtaining funding, not through their government. Just a hunch. They need to get funded, and they really don't want. Really? Am I babbling? And they really don't want to go to a Congress and say, we need money for XYZ. Some things they just better let's do it on in-house somehow. Yes, we're not going to stay on here for that much longer. So, hey, Fort Worth, Texas. Kind of looking forward to going to Texas because I got to go out and see the USS Texas. I haven't met any of Galen's people, but I really want to. I don't think any of them are alive anymore. I think one of their children was alive until some years ago, at least, but I haven't come across any. And certainly the people running the museum in Sussen are not particularly cooperative. Yeah, it's just my maid's day off, so I can't have coffee brought to me. Terrible. No, every historian should have an assistant bringing him coffee, or her. Exactly. Right, politics. Yeah, I know. You got to think about it this way. When I'm done talking, I'm going to finish off the east wall and put that up for you. And then I got to get back to the first episode of Last Nazi Secret and the first episode of Great Castles. And first episodes are always, well, Great Castles is not. I had an idea, and when I met the enemy, it turns into it's turning into a different idea. I just want to do it because I'll have to start by presenting the whole how everything some of the basics of how the beginning of origins for the modern war and the castles, so we can get into visiting the locations. So the first one's always the one that keeps me up at night. Yeah, I mean, there are papers of the Annenab sitting around in boxes that probably haven't been opened, and most of the German historians or archaeologists really don't want to talk about it because they did what they did only because they needed the money. These were the only people that paid. So yeah, and that story is just getting really, really old. I am eating. The hell is this? Das Originale zum Kaulen. I am eating these, which are soft German licorices, probably made in Poland. Anyway. Anyway, fine. Do I think that the Third Reich would have carried on if Hitler was killed in Operation Valkyrie? Yes, the SS would have taken over, which they kind of wanted to do. And there's very, very suspicious evidence that Himmler had an idea it was coming, but not entirely when. You have to remember the day of the assassination, or the night, I think the night before, I'm sorry, he put his wife and daughter on a train out of Berlin, which he doesn't usually do, down to their, I think he sent them off to Austria, to a house there, to get them out of the way. And so I think instinctively Hitler had good ideas as to where he wanted to go with things. He had a good instinct. He was savvy, but he was getting tired, and he was getting. I don't know how much the drugs affected him and his capacity of logical thought, because from what I hear from people who have met them, he was still sharp as a tack until the end. But he was probably making decisions for whatever reason that were not doing Germany a great benefit. And if you look at the top of the SS, they probably knew that what the unconditional surrender was on the table only by the Allies. So with Hitler still alive, they would never be able to come to any kind of amicable peace. However, if Hitler was killed, the SS would take over, run the operation, even if it was the army that killed Hitler, if that was the case, which was probably not entirely by accident, because there was still a lot of. I mean, Hitler was not unpopular in Germany. It was Himmler. The war was. The British was very unpopular, bombing all their cities, but Hitler wasn't. He was still popular, and that's something we sort of neglect to talk about in post history, because no one was a Nazi. It about just exactly around May 9th, 1945. No one had ever been a Nazi. No one ever supported them, and it's all bullcrap, and we all know that. But they said what they had to say in order to survive in the next climate. But had the army succeeded in killing Hitler, they would have looked like traitors, which indeed some of them still think they were. Um, that meant the SS could then come in and arrest the traitors, say, well, we have lost our Führer, now we will take over. Who would have taken over? Probably Himmler, which would then would make them able to contact the Allies and seek out, at least in their mind, or in a hopeful, wishful thinking, a peace, because they knew the war was lost. The smart people in the SS knew the war was lost. So if somebody accidentally killed Hitler, their allegiance was gone, and hopefully, maybe, yes, Himmler's family survived. Maybe they could have come to some agreement that would still have kept them in charge. I could see why they could have thought that. So I think the SS would have, if the army had taken charge, they would have called for ceasefires, stop of the war, surrendered, one way or another. But with the SS, they would see it as a way of having kept their agenda alive and still be in charge without having to deal with Hitler. What a guess. Yes, Himmler's family survived. His daughter died in 2018. Bormann would never have been. No, he was the Reich secretary and head of the party, but he was never really a successor. He was honestly, if Hitler had died, something nasty would probably have happened to Bormann on behalf of the SS or any number of people that he pissed off, because the only reason Hitler liked Bormann because he always got everything done, and he was absolutely ruthless, but he was most certainly not popular. So I don't think he would have made it. He would not have, also, no one in Germany knew really who he was. He was hiding behind the scenes. You couldn't just place him there. Everybody knew who Himmler was, or Goebbels was, or Goering was. So no, it would have been somebody else. Bormann, no one really knew. No one could have picked him out of a lineup. But yes, that's what they did. Okay, still, Hitler escaped from Berlin. If Hitler wanted to get out, he could have gotten out. He could have, and I don't. We didn't need to spend an entire episode in hunting Hitler trying to find out how he would have gotten out of Berlin. He could have gotten out if he wanted to. I just don't know if he wanted to. He had lost everything he believed in or wanted to fight for, and I don't think. I don't think he would. There would be anything for him to live for at that point. I could be wrong. It's just looking at the man and what he had believed in. I don't think he would. He would want to continue living, but if he did, he could have, certainly. German veterans, they thought they were liberating Europe from communism. Yes, a lot of the German soldiers that went to Norway and Denmark went there saying to protect Norway and Denmark from the British, which is not entirely true because, which is not entirely wrong, because the British were planning on invading Norway and Sweden within days anyway. The Germans just got there first. When they woke up the Norwegian king in the middle of the night and said, we are at war, he said, with whom? The British had every intention of invading Norway and Sweden, that was neutral, in order to deny Germany the iron ore. So for the Germans to believe they were there to protect Norway and Denmark against the British is entirely what was happened. That's what many of them said and believed. That the bigger picture was different. Oh, that's a different story. That's what the soldiers on the streets thought. I don't. I don't think Hess was crazy. I think he was very, very. I don't know about Hess. Hess is interesting. Um, I don't think he was crazy, but I think he had beliefs that were probably very much into the esoteric, and he was believed very much in the spiritual, and he might have been easy to manipulate. There's always someone saying that various people were manipulating him, and he did things that, I mean, what he did was probably one of the most honorable things done during the war. He tried to stop it in the middle of it by being 50 plus years old, jumping into a plane, flying all the way um, over England and in Scotland, and jumping out and to try to get a peace deal together. Why that was naive or stupid, I mean, I guess it was a little crazy to think that he could, but he believed he could for whatever reason. I think he was maybe influenced by. Well, that's a whole different. That's quite a bit of a talk, because there was all these uh, tarot card readers and spiritualists that was surrounding him, that was also reporting to the SS officer, to Himmler and to Schellenberg, on what they were telling Hess, and it's not entirely impossible to think that some of those, which were not exactly honorable people, all of them could have been influenced to tell Hess things. It was indicated that Bormann had given them an indication that he wanted them to indicate to Hess that he should try to do this, because then Bormann wanted Hess out of the way as deputy Führer. So he might have been influenced to do dumb things, but I don't think he would. I don't think Hess. I mean, he certainly believed in the Nazi cause, but a lot of people did back then. Um, I don't think it was crazy. Maybe a little misguided. And certainly wasn't esoteric bent that maybe made some of his thought processes a little more special. Um, I mean, he grew up in the Middle East too. He had some very interesting background. Juan Keller came Hardbom. That is correct. Mm, I think he lived out to Argentina. I mean, yes, you've been listening to what Peter said as well, that he did visit in Indonesia. Yep, yep. Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk, because I never figured out exactly how far. I think Peter went back after he talked much about that, and I haven't actually found out what conclusion he came to on that. So I'll see. We need to get Peter on here. Let's see. I'll reach out to him. Um, Lothar. I am searching at Lothar. Believe me. Didn't want to go. He did not. No, he didn't want to go out like Mussolini. That you're absolutely right. And nope, Hess did absolutely not kill himself. And U-530. Yeah, it was right. Yeah, the submarine. I did an episode talking about that, and it was on the very outside envelope of that submarine's endurance. However, it couldn't have made it to Antarctica and back again, so that's not where he went. He didn't go to America and back again, because they tried that and they didn't let him go. He didn't go to Japan and back. So there are a few islands on the way. Um, I don't know. I don't know. The 530 did the 530 U-530 stop in the Canary Islands? I do not remember. The moment of opportunity praise may have been. No, I actually think Hesse tried to do something. I don't think he was very much the quiet guy in the background. He didn't try to get the attention that some of the others were fighting for. I think he tried to do something. I think that's. I don't have the indication from anything I've seen or read or heard about Hess that he was the guy that wanted the big attention, like the others, that was trying to that would benefit from getting rid of him. Dark Age of Hindu. Yeah, there's some. He had some very, like I said, Hess grew up. He grew up in Egypt. He was born, I think, to German parents. Um, I think he really did generally believe that he could talk the British out of into a peace deal by using his royal contacts, and he carried a letter to the king that the king probably got, which means if there's any honesty in record keeping in England and yeah and royals, that letter still exists in the royal archives where no one will be allowed to see it. I'm sure. I would love to ask, but how many no's can I possibly handle? Um, I mean, yes, a lot of people that there's a lot of lot of sightings of Hitler in the years after, the decades after. Um, I mean, it's also a good way to keep your funding going, keep seeing your enemies everywhere, keep appropriations going, keep money, isn't it? I mean, I'm not saying that any agency would make up stories like that so they could keep being funded for their trips to South America and travel around looking for somebody. I'm just saying. Oh yes, Hitler. No, certainly Hitler was an incarnate Nazi. Absolutely, he was not in that sense not on board with the party platform. He just was not on board with the whole war against England. And I don't think a lot of them wanted war with England, and I think to some degree it was a surprise to Hitler that England declared war because he never wanted that, and he had by Chamberlain's actions been given the indication that probably wouldn't. Um, but Britain had made some promises, and the Azores, um, I don't know. I vaguely remember hearing the Azores mentioned in relation to somebody stopping over. Um, it would be something I would look into, Daryl. Absolutely. Here's an address. South. You know what? I cannot copy or paste from here, Lothar. Would you shoot me a mail or just drop a note in this afterwards so I can find you? Why are you sending me addresses after I leave Austria? Fine. Um, I like Austria. Very, very good food. Um, hey, where in Argentina are you? And is our thanks, buddy. Um, yes, I'm looking forward to going to Argentina. I am. Yes, I have seen that coin. I've seen that coin that was struck after Eichmann went to Palestine to see to find out what deal could be done between the Nazis and the Zionists. Um, yeah, that that goes also into a little bit of who the bankers were that funded both Churchill and Hitler leading up to the war, which is a story that apparently no one really wants to talk about these days or ever since because, well, if the money for two sides of a war come from the same side, a little bit like World War One, wars that are made and doesn't happen. Really, why did they just believe Hitler? So, I mean, that they're well. The problem with Hitler being ow, sorry, I just kicked the table. The problem with Hitler being dead or alive is that there's no body and no real provenance for him being dead. And the three people from the bunker that were close to him, that was there that day, the Russians had, and they didn't release him for 10 years. Yes, and I talked about high jump on the episode I did with Drakenfeld. That's kind of a big part of that episode. Um, but there's never a body found. Still to this day, there's no pieces of the body found. Stalin sort of, I could see why the Stalin wanted to use Hitler being alive as something he could lord over the Allies and vice versa. So we're talking about Russian, American, British allies that didn't trust each other, and the Cold War was in the offing. We all knew, everybody knew it was coming. They just had to get rid of Germany first, or the Nazis first, and then they'll deal with the Cold War sooner than later. So having a Hitler ghost hiding around, including sightings and all these different stories, and it could very much aid to fuel that fire by one saying that you are harboring him, and the other side said the same thing, and everyone's lying to everyone. Of course, the documented story of Hitler's suicide in the bunker was written by a British intelligence agent, which doesn't exactly lend anything to its credibility. No offense to British intelligence, but I mean, intelligence does not exactly always tell the truth. Now, do you? Thank you. Shy Girl channel? I'm sorry, I gotta check out that. Big push major elimination. Yep. Bankers funding wars, kings, nations. Yep. Uh, Randall, I don't know. I don't think that series of Nazi UFOs is real. It doesn't mean like I said. I think you just got here, but we talked about that half an hour ago. Um, that I have met with Czech aeronautical historians that works at the museum that have testimony to have seen flying discs. But I think that whole series, the Hannibal, and that whole series of documents came out years after the war in a propaganda effort. That is what Joseph talked about. But it doesn't mean they didn't test flying discs, or they tested everything. That was the one thing you got to give it to the Germans at the time. They tried everything in every direction to find out what worked. And testing a flying disc, not out of the realm of possibility. So whether it had that name or not, I don't think that from the drawings I see, I don't think that is a real drawing. I don't think that is real, but I don't think we can rule out that they tested something to that effect. Oh, okay. Oh, so the Hornets is there. Beefy Productions. All right. Kat, did you not just say something that I missed? United States President visible. Yeah. Kat, I thought it was only Democrat presidents. I don't think Reagan didn't go there. Trump didn't go. Okay, so when is Biden going to Bariloche? Oh God, help me. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to going to Bariloche, and I have no idea why all American presidents go there. That really is very interesting that they all go to that particular little place. I'm telling you, I'm going to test the schnitzel there, and if it's as good as it is in Austria, that's a good reason to go. Yeah, FDR was just great. Did so many great things. I don't. I no, I don't think. I don't think he did either. I thought it was the Democrat presidents going to Bariloche, ever since Kennedy. Um, there must be some. There must be something. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of vegan restaurants. I'm sorry. Did I say that? I'm sorry if I offended any vegans out there. Well, Hitler was a vegan, and look at the rotten war he had. All that poor man needed was a bacon cheeseburger, and things would have gone a lot better. Theoretically. Anyway, all right. So I think we have crossed into the 3 hour mark, and I want to finish an episode for you guys so I can go to bed because I have one of those horrible. I'm actually working more tomorrow, and yes, they all had doubles. Absolutely. I um, oh, really? Yes, bacon cheeseburger. I did say that. Um, all right, you guys, be nice and be nice to each other, and so on and so forth. The 27th, we'll be back and with Joseph, and I'm hoping I can um, coax the chieftain in to talk about World War II munitions. I will reach out to Peter Lavende, and I will try to get to all the emails you have sent, and I'll try to get back to answering some of the more of the comments now that I'm actually somewhat stationary and can do so. And please get your friends to like, follow, and share, because that's kind of how I keep alive doing this. I have noticed that the viewer numbers have gone down by half since I went traveling. Damn it. Uh, I think we need to start rounding up people and force them to watch the channel. You guys take care, and I will see you soon. Well, hell, I'll see you next week. Be well, and if you can't be well, don't get caught.